It is Tuesday, and thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Across from me, Carlene, James. How are you guys doing?
Hi.
We're good. Did you say it's Thursday?
I said Tuesday, right?
No, I said Tuesday.
I said Tuesday.
Okay, good.
Okay,
All
all right.
It's Tuesday. Megan's here to verify what day of the week
We
it
are
is.
off. That's Megan Bragg. We'll get to
Hi.
her in a few moments. We are off to a great start so far. Really smooth, guys. Look, this is the purpose of Live Impact News. Things happen. We adjust on the fly. I say Tuesday. James says Thursday. And then,
Just checking.
We figured it out. Okay, look, we have a lot going on today. I'm looking at President Trump right now. He's live during his cabinet meeting. We're going to hit on the updates as far as Texas, the flooding there, also the situation in North Carolina, as far as flooding in central North Carolina. This is a look outside here in Charlotte, in Uptown. Hot day, beautiful day.
A little stuffy.
It's stuffy.
It's stuffy in here.
It's stuffy in here. It is a little stuffy
So I
here.
know it's stuffier out there.
Right. So look, it's hot. Make sure you hydrate. Make sure you are putting on that sunscreen. That's important. We do have weather. Before we get to weather, James brought up a good point. We should check in on the flooding situation there in central North Carolina. I don't know if you had that ready, queued up,
Sure.
the map. So folks there in the Orange County, Durham County, Alamance County area dealing with flooding yesterday. Basically after Sunday evening, rain just drenched that area and seeing record levels of flooding that date back to almost 30 years. You're talking about 1996, Hurricane Fran. A lot of folks were not even here during Hurricane Fran, so they it gives you perspective on how much rain and how long it's been since this has happened. Eno River there in Durham County, flooding. All right, so this is a look at the map,
Yeah.
right?
So
Here
this
you
is
go.
where we are today on Tuesday. You can see that the water that fell across Alamance, between Greensboro and Durham, is flowing its way out to the Atlantic. So we have moderate flood conditions now near Fort Bragg because that's the path the water is going to be taking. So it's not quite as high as what we saw further upstream where that concentration of water fell, but you can see the National Weather Service does have flood warnings out for this portion of the river. This is going to be the Cape Fear River. That is what the Hall River runs into. And so we kind of do expect, as you look further out at the forecast, that we could see moderate to minor flooding for our neighbors who are in this portion of the Carolinas all the way out to where the Cape Fear runs into in Wilmington. And it's not expected to crest there for another day or so, Nick.
Yeah, I continue to get pictures and video from friends and folks I know out there. Worked out there in that area for a few years. The latest, again, 80 people rescued near the Eno River. It's a very popular area there in Durham County. Basically, if my memory serves me correctly, you can go to Durham County, and I also should mention Person County. Person County is right there next to Durham County, where a lot of folks commute in to go to Durham, either for leisure or to work. So the folks there, that is the situation. And this is
video from yesterday
Okay.
showing that flooding.
Yeah, and that was a look yesterday. Again, that rain just kind of, I was in the High Point Greensboro area Sunday, so I saw a lot of that rain, but you didn't realize how much of it was coming down there. And again, in Alamance County, Orange County, Durham County, how much they got. Some very just tough to look at, because especially when folks that live in that area and impacted and affected by this stuff. But I did mention the forecast. Let's get to a check of our forecast. Here is meteorologist Becca Birdsall.
You know what? AC is going to be your best friend for today, as today's highs will likely be the hottest out of the week ahead. So we just have to get through this afternoon. Right now, already touched 90 degrees, dew point of 71, making it feel like 96 out there. Gorgeous view Of sunshine from our Dallas camera, courtesy of our Mr. Sparky Carolina Cam Network. Highs today will soar once again to the upper 90s across the metro area and lower 80s even for the high country. Lots of sunshine to go around. Of course, combining that with the humidity factor, those heat index values will likely be in the lower 100s. Again, just a few degrees shy of that heat advisory criteria, but that is still dangerous heat, which is why we want you to stay weather alert. The average high for this time of year is 90. So today is about 8 degrees above the normal high for this time of year. But temperatures will start to cool down closer to average as we head to your Thursday, and that's where we'll pretty much stay as we end out the work week. But that's also going to be as rain chances increase as well. There's still going to be a lot of humidity in the air. It's still going to be a hot week. Tomorrow will also feel close to the triple digits, and then Thursday and Friday still feeling like the upper 90s before heat starts to build once again towards this weekend. Rain chances will still peak as we head from Wednesday through Friday with rounds of heavy rain and thunderstorms, and those are days that we just added to a weather alert. So here's what you need to know. Here are those impacts. Today, a couple of thunderstorms in the forecast, hit or miss, and only a few of us will be seeing them. By the time we get into Wednesday, that's that future cast, that's that coverage. It's much more widespread, and this could lead to some flash flooding, just not for everyone. Also, the potential for a couple of strong to severe thunderstorms containing damaging wind gusts. Right now, not a drop of rain to track from the mountains into the metro. That will change as we get some more of that daytime heating and instability in the atmosphere. Pop-up thunderstorms can be expected. Again, just not in everyone's backyard. By the time we get into Wednesday, really starting around 11 o'clock noon, this is when we'll start to see more active weather come in. First starting up in the mountains, and then look at how it increases in coverage later on this afternoon and evening. That's Wednesday, 6 o'clock as you are heading home from work. So that could be a messy commute, especially out on the roadways with those slow moving downpours dumping a lot of rainfall. This will continue into Wednesday night, and you know what? We will do it all again on Thursday, which will only exacerbate those flooding concerns, especially if it's already on top of a place that already saw heaviest downpours on Wednesday. So futurecast rainfall is truly all over the place. What's it really showing is the potential for isolated storms that could produce 1 to even over 3 inches of rainfall. But this is going to be heavily dependent on where the heaviest downpours set up, and not everyone will be seeing them. That's just Carolina weather for you. But again, everyone is under that threat for flash flooding. A medium threat for excessive rainfall as we head into Wednesday. We'll also carry that threat for Thursday and Friday. Again, why we want you to stay weather alert. In addition, the Storm Prediction Center does have us under a low-end threat for severe storms, meaning an isolated storm between Tuesday through Thursday could have some damaging wind gusts associated with it. That's over 60 miles per hour. Of course, when you combine that with heavy rainfall, could see down trees and down power lines. So stay weather alert. Definitely have multiple ways to get watches and warnings, and stay tuned on WCNC Plus 7-day forecast. Lots of red in this 7-day forecast. We are weather alert for the heat today, and then weather alert for heavy rainfall and flash flooding potential between Wednesday and Thursday, carrying the storm chances through the weekend.
All right, so we are weather alert throughout the entire week. Extreme heat, storms, so just be on the lookout. Make sure you have our app handy so you can get the most up-to-date information. Hey, and make sure you have live impact news on. Have WCNC Plus on all day, because we'll get you right there when it comes to breaking news, development stories, and also weather. All right, so we have an interesting story. I saw this on Instagram via, I believe, our social media, WCNC Charlotte. I just want to give us a shout out. I believe that's where I saw it. Well, this is what I saw. I know what you're wondering at home. You're probably reading the lower third, but what I saw was it's okay to keep your shoes on at some airports. All right, so the TSA will allow passengers at selected airports to keep their footwear on as they go through security checkpoints. That's according to a senior government official. That's what they're telling NBC News. So, we had to bring in WCNC Charlotte's Megan Bragg, who is here verifying this. So, Meg, you have a little bit of lived experience with this.
I do. And the reason why I thought of this as I was going through security, I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Verify.
Working while on vacation.
I know. Look at me. But the funny thing is, I do want to start off by saying, a lot of this is these articles that are coming out are all speculation, right? They're saying
Right.
sources say, people close say there was a memo. But we've reached out to TSA. No one's really saying that this is true or not. However, from what I went through, I can tell you, I was leaving Rochester, New York, so I was going through the Rochester airport, regular line. I'm not one of those fancy pre-check people, and I know, right? And the TSA security person was able to tell me that when I was going through, she said, "Hey, by the way, new rule, you can keep your shoes on." And I was like, "What's she talking about?" But I kept my shoes on. I was so excited. And
I can see you doing a little prance.
I was like, me, my shoes? I'm like, first of all, I was like, am I special? No. Like, she was telling everybody going through the line, and I thought it was so interesting. I'm like, what is this new rule? And so I started Googling. There wasn't a lot popping up. And then, of course, today, everything started coming out about it. And it kind of falls in line with what TSA put out in a press release saying that they were looking at ways to improve security efficiency, but they didn't come out right and say, you don't have to take off your shoes anymore. They just said that we are looking at ways to improve efficiency here. So that's kind of what they are saying. And and I also reached out to the Charlotte Douglas Airport as well, and they gave me, a wonderful PR response, which is good. I mean, you know, they're doing their job, but they said, of course, we're working with TSA to make everybody safe and efficient and whatever. But that direct question has to go through TSA. So they wouldn't tell me if Charlotte was also doing this, like, you can keep your shoes on. But I know that when I went through TSA yesterday, Rochester allowed me to keep my shoes on.
And PTI in Greensboro is, that's one of the airports.
That's what you read, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to give you some context, it's a small airport. It's a regional airport.
So is Rochester.
Rochester.
Rochester's
So
very small airport. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, and again, we're still trying to get information bit by bit. Are they slow rolling this out, or is this an impact?
Smaller ones.
Yeah.
And then kind of going from there. Yeah, I mean, it is something to think about. When I was going through TSA yesterday, I thought, well, this kind of makes sense because now everyone needs a real ID. And in order to have a real ID, you need another, I guess, security aspect. It's kind of like, not like a passport, but it's
another layer.
It's another layer of, security. So I'm thinking, okay, this kind of makes sense. You either need a real ID or a passport. So, but we don't know if that's the reason why. Now, this rule started in 2006 to keep your shoes on. And what really made it go off, I guess, start was in 2001, a guy from Paris flying into New York tried to light his shoe on fire that was supposedly had explosives in it or something, and he couldn't light the shoe. It never went off. And so that's kind of why they were like, whoa, no more. You got to take off your shoes. We got to make sure that there's nothing.
Realize that.
Yes,
Wow.
and then it was implemented, and then it was relaxed, and then implemented again. So 2006 was really when this was seriously implemented, and people. So almost 10 years we've had to wear our shoes through or take our shoes off when going through security. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. So still a lot of information to get. When can folks? I always ask the story. Hopefully you were prepared.
I looked this time. Don't you worry.
When can folks check out your story?
In the 5 o'clock hour.
Can we give a clap to Meg? There you go. Meg. There you go. She did it.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, fascinating story. Still a lot of answers. I do have one question.
Yeah.
Do you notice security going by faster or things picking up faster? Okay.
Absolutely. I was like, why have we not been doing this? I mean, everyone, because
So you're for this?
I'm so for it.
Okay.
As long as, we're all being safe.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it's because that one guy who's got the shoe on is like, trying to take it off.
Yeah,
the tight boots.
Stop in the middle of the thing.
Yes.
Put their shoes back on.
Put their yep.
I mean, I can relate.
This is why some of us have elected for TSA PreCheck. So we can just point and laugh at you guys struggling.
I know,
to
but
get
you know
shoes
what,
off.
James, is the best thing yesterday is I was pointing and laughing at everyone with pre-check and being like, Like,
It's going to
now
say.
look at me.
say-
Yeah,
what to say.
exactly.
But it
Not
just
a peasant anymore.
it just made me
Like-
think of something. Y'all know I'm a shoe guy. I'm a sneaker guy.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't wear certain sneakers to the airport when I'm traveling. I
Right.
wear the most comfortable, easy
Yeah.
You don't want
shoes.
stuff, you don't want to, yeah.
I can't wear Jordans
No.
because I have to kind of pull them apart. They're designed to unlace, and so I
Yeah.
try to get something I can slip into.
Slip in. So maybe you can wear your Jordans now.
Maybe I can, but you
can
know,
fly to the airport.
Yeah, look at you.
all my
I
shoes are
think
fly.
it's safe for me to say that on a travel day where I'm going through the airport, I have not thought this hard about what sneakers I'm wearing.
Oh, I always think about it.
I think about it. I'm
I
a
have
sneaker
an.
guy.
You don't have an airport outfit? That's
Oh,
like
I
the
do
best
because I
part.
burn it when I get off the plane.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair.
Megan Bragg, thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
thank
As
you.
always, interesting story. Okay, all right. So now I don't have to think as much of it. Well,
We'll see.
we'll see. We'll see. Let me not. Again, that is what we're getting from senior government officials. That's what they're telling NBC as far as some airports, selected airports, you can keep your footwear on as you go through security checkpoints at the airport. All right, so we want to get to something live. All right, that something live is happening right now in D.C. That's President Donald Trump. He is having a cabinet meeting at the White House. So this comes after make sure I get the right information. This comes after President Trump, and I'm reading this from AP News' website. Trump sparked hysteria in the international markets by announcing, or this spring, by announcing tariff rates on dozens of countries before unveiling a 90-day negotiating period. That period was set to begin Wednesday, but the president signed an executive order yesterday to delay the official tariff increase until August 1st. So that was the big news yesterday coming out of the administration. Let's take a listen into what President Trump is saying now.
That's a tough one to take, but his career is limited because I hear AOC is going to beat him, and she's no bargain either, by the way. Go ahead.
Well, just say that's an example of an America First team effort to get this country back. So that's what America First looks like for the viewers watching us at home. My two questions. Looks like we have a rogue judge, an Obama-backed rogue judge that is attempting to block the funding to Planned Parenthood, which the big, beautiful bill cuts off the funding to Planned Parenthood. Any plans to challenge that?
Absolutely. Yes, we're on it. We're on it. And I texted, I believe, I talked to yesterday Secretary Lutnick and Secretary Besson. I reached out to you to let you know that we were on it in the big, beautiful bill.
Wonderful. And then my
I
second...
let her handle that question. You notice? I said, go ahead, handle that question.
Toss it to her. Then my second question was Secretary Rollins. You did an amazing press conference today in front of the Department of Agriculture. You talked about the Farm Act and the need to get China out of our country, owning farmland. For the viewers at home that might have missed that, can you recap what that means to national security to make sure we can grow our own food?
Well, thank you, Brian. Sir, if you don't mind. Yes, this morning Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Noem, and Attorney General Bondi and I had a press conference at the USDA. I just happened to have a chart in case it came up, but obviously the Chinese owning of farmland in our country is a massive national security issue. And for the media, you can see the yellow is where all of the farms have been purchased over the last number of years, and the red is around all of the military bases where that farmland has been purchased. So this is a massive national security issue. The press conference this morning included 3 of our greatest governors as well, Sarah Sanders from Arkansas, Jim Pillen from Nebraska, and Bill Lee from Tennessee. The states have begun taking a leadership role to ban the purchasing of China farmland. Obviously, Congress needs to step up and catch up, and we're going to be working alongside of them as well. We have some of our members, great members of Congress there, but it is time, and I think that this morning was symbolic of many things. The first of this administration working every day to effectuate President Trump's leadership and unequivocal support of America First. But second, just how close we are as a cabinet. I don't know in any other administration that you'd have 4 cabinet members at the USDA on a Tuesday morning when it's about 110 degrees outside with the sun beating down on us talking about your vision. So I think it was a great day. It was just the start. There's an executive order coming and some other things coming behind that. But protecting America's farms isn't just about protecting our farmers. It's also about national security. So that's what we discussed this morning.
I think we have had a really good relationship with China lately, and we're getting along with them very well. They've been very fair on our trade deal, honestly, and I hope we're going to have a great relationship. It's a big, strong, powerful country. We're more powerful than they are. We have much better military equipment than they do, but we are getting along with them very well. I'm getting along with President Xi very well. We speak often. And with all of that being said, and I understand what you're saying, but I think we're getting along with China very well.
Mr. President, you are sending more weapons to Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We want to put defensive. Putin is not. He's not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. What did you tell me?
I think that's a question for the
Go ahead.
Mr. President, on immigration, the Secretary of the Agriculture did say this morning that undocumented workers would not be covered by any amnesty of who are working on farms. You had said maybe that the ISA folks won't go after those folks on farms. So which is it?
There's no amnesty. What we're doing is we're getting rid of criminals, but we are doing a work program. Do you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, this morning we talked about, of course, this was a top of mind question. This morning we talked about protecting the farmers and the farmland, but obviously this president's vision of no amnesty, mass deportation continues, but in a strategic way, and then ensuring that our farmers have the labor that they need. Secretary Chavez-DeRimmer has been a leader on this. Obviously, this comes out of the Labor Department, but moving toward automation, ensuring that our farmers have that workforce, and moving toward an American workforce. So all of the above.
We want to give the farmers the people they need, but we're not talking amnesty. Laura, do you want to say something about that?
Thank you, Mr. President. On this, thank you, Secretary Rollins, how important this is never to displace the American worker. What the Department of Labor is doing is focusing on what the law entails now, being more modernized, more streamlining, to work through the H programs. We're going to have a concierge approach to that, where we have developed a new office to answer the need of our farmers and ranchers and producers, and not to displace the American worker, and follow within the law now, and that does not include an amnesty program at all. And that working, and we'll continue to have that roll out. On the other topics that we've somewhat talked about, the jobs numbers, Mr. President, 4 months in a row we've seen those jobs numbers increase. That's an exciting time for our manufacturers. That was asked earlier. We know it's going to take some time, but through that deregulation process that Lee and I are working on as well, the Department of Labor has rolled out 63 new deregulations that we're going to be moving through. In the first Trump administration, it was successful with over 30. We've just rolled out 63 new ones in order to double down on those manufacturing companies, to let them know that we have signaled through this process that we will assist them in getting the workforce that they need. It's an exciting time. That one big beautiful bill, that was the signal to my former colleagues in Congress to get this done. It's been an important time. I spent time on the ground visiting 7 states in 9 days prior to that bill being passed, because it was the most pro-worker piece of legislation that we will ever see really in this country right now. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. That matters to the American worker, because we don't want to take their money and give it back. We want them to keep more of their hard-earned dollars in their pockets currently, and that's what they're excited about. And as I move forward with those tariff talks, I heard a company, orthopedic company in Indiana, say to me, for the first time since you have taken office, Mr. President, their increase in their bottom line by 8% since these tariff talks have happened. Not one company has said the president is not doing a good job. These tariff talks are working. They're feeling it on the ground. The media has told a false story, because what's happening on the ground is positive, and that's what we're seeing in these jobs numbers. So I really, through the Department of Labor, to come in behind all the secretaries and build this workforce is going to be key to the American worker. So thank you for what everybody did this last week. The one big beautiful bill is a doubling down of this, and we're going to see these workers start to grow. And that apprenticeship program is going to be working. We'll have that 1 million apprentices across the country.
As you know, we're building plants all over the country now, which you weren't building any plants 4 years ago. You weren't building anything. But those plants, when they open up, it's going to be, you'll see numbers like you haven't seen ever. I don't think in history you'll never see numbers like in the very near future. Many of them are building the plants. Some are just starting right now. You know, it's a brand new administration. But, and they wouldn't be here except for two things: November 5th, the election, and the tariffs. And frankly, I guess the election was more important because of the tariffs. I mean, another person wouldn't have done this. But they're coming in because of the tariffs. They have to, they're not going to pay 25, 30, 40, 50%, 70 and 100%. And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in, and after that they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. We'll give them a certain period of time to get their act together. But they were all here, now they all left. They went to other places because we allowed, people that sat in this room allowed it to happen. And I don't allow it to happen. The people in this room don't allow it to happen. So we're going to be announcing pharmaceuticals, chips, and various couple of other things, you know, big ones. We did steel, as you know, they're 50%. We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out.
That's copper.
And we did cars. And now, today we're doing copper.
Copper, what would that tariff be on? The section tariff?
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
50%.
Any breakthroughs in
I'm glad he didn't question it. I sort of thought, what would that be? A quick one. I didn't have much time, but he agreed with me. That's why he's ours.
Any breakthroughs on Gaza with the Prime Minister, and there's reports that you're meeting with Netanyahu again tonight. Is that accurate?
He's going to come over. We're talking about Gaza. It's mostly Gaza right now. It's he's been very unfairly treated. I think what they've done to him in Israel is very unfair, having to do with this trial. I think, you know, he's a wartime prime minister, had an unbelievable outcome, and I think he's been treated very unfairly. But he's coming over later. We're going to be talking about, I would say, almost exclusively Gaza. We got to get that solved. Gaza is a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And he wants to get it solved, and I want to get it solved, and I think the other side wants to get it solved. Steve, could you talk on that, please?
We're in proximity talks now, and we had 4 issues, and now we're down to 1 after 2 days of proximity talks. So we are hopeful that by the end of this week, we will have an agreement that will bring us into a 60-day ceasefire. 10 live hostages will be released. 9 deceased will be released. We're meeting at the President's direction with all the hostage families to let them know. And we think that this will lead to a lasting peace in Gaza.
And you're doing a good job. It's a tough one. A lot of hate, you know. It's called long-term hate. But we think we're going to have it solved pretty soon, hopefully with a real solution, a solution that's going to be holding up.
And can I follow up? This is, I think, the first cabinet meeting since Elon Musk has not been a special government employee, not here anymore. He's now saying he's going to create a third political party. Are you worried about the impact that could have?
No, I think it'll help us. It'll probably help. Third parties have always been good for me. I don't know about Republicans, but for me.
Are you second guessing any of the cuts that Doge made since you described him as off the rails?
Look, we cut hundreds of billions of dollars with Doge. We could have done it differently. I would have done it differently a little bit, maybe, but it was something that we saved a lot of money. You can always second guess. I guess some of the people in this room maybe would have done it slightly differently, and some would have done it exactly the way it was done. But it was dramatic, and it was important. And we found a lot of things like billions of dollars given to people for environmental protection where they had $100 in the account, like in Atlanta, Stacy. And then you had another one with 20 billion here, and 20 billion here, and 2 billion here, and 15 billion. And Lee, you might want to mention just a couple of those things. We really got because of Doge.
At the Trump EPA, the One Big Beautiful Bill was filled with many big beautiful wins for the taxpayer. It delivered a sledgehammer to the Green New scam. Billions of dollars rescinded. So it's a big deal for the American taxpayer who sees money go through Penrose, that are filled with self-dealing and conflicts of interest. They see unqualified recipients. They see reduced agency oversight, and they want.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there, you're watching live as President Trump holds a cabinet meeting there at the White House. While this is happening, we are hearing from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Capitol Hill. He met with House Speaker Mike Johnson. That is happening live. Both things are happening live at the same time. So as soon as we get a moment, we'll get back to either or. But those are the things that are happening right now in our nation's capital. We do want to shift gears and we want to come back home. We want to come to Monroe, where WCNC Charlotte's Miles Harris is there. So Monroe leaders are set to weigh a no confidence vote against the mayor this afternoon. That meeting is set to start at 4 p.m. So Miles, catch us up. Walk us through what is happening there in Monroe.
Yeah, Nick, like you said, that meeting is supposed to happen around 4 o'clock today, ahead of another city council meeting that is looking like that it's scheduled for 6 o'clock. But this happens after there's been a lot of tension when it comes to city council members and the mayor, and this stems really over the past couple of months. There's been a lot of controversial actions and statements that have been made by the mayor that's really kind of fueling this decision, I guess, or this vote that's happening later on this evening here. Now, one of the most recent things that we had covered when it came to the provisions and really the addition to the city of Monroe when it comes to that House Bill 3 that was made out there in Raleigh, it does make some changes when it comes to the dealings and handlings when it comes to how you can vote, whether it's partisan or nonpartisan here in Monroe. And so Monroe got added to that, and it kind of drew a lot of questions and concerns from not just city council members but also community residents, and how Monroe got added to that provision just about a month ago. So there's still a lot of questions with that. There's been a lot of questions when it comes to a lot of the social media posts that the mayor has done, whether that's kind of statements in regards to addressing Monroe as a sanctuary city in reference to their law enforcement complying with ICE. It also deals with some of the statements in regards to their Roe v. Wade decision from the Supreme Court. There's just a lot of controversy in regards to the mayor that the city council is now taking these actions and trying to address with this no confidence vote. We will get a chance to talk to some of the community members out here in Monroe, but also hopefully hearing from those city council members as well in that meeting to kind of learn more in their decision, and obviously their decision with that vote, but also just more reasoning behind why this even happened and how we even got to this point, Nick. But definitely a lot of questions with that one as well.
Miles, one question before I let you go. Have you been able to speak with Mayor Robert Burns? Is he speaking publicly about this?
Well, we haven't heard back from their office on whether or not they will get a chance to talk with us before that meeting. I would anticipate that there would be some type of response regardless of wherever this vote goes, hearing from him following that vote. So that's kind of one of the things that we're really looking forward to hearing about. We know that he did give out a statement following the decision that they were going to make this vote tonight, and where he really just addressed this and saying that this is really a political move, that this is kind of really defending his opinions and actions, and saying that this is really just kind of an agenda against him, I should say, when it comes to city council maybe making this decision. Now, obviously, we hope to learn more and hear more from him tonight, whether that's before that vote or afterwards, but definitely expecting to hear a statement from him as well today.
Miles Harris live in Monroe ahead of that no confidence vote, that city council meeting that will happen this afternoon. Miles, thank you for your time there. All right. And again, Miles will have more for us during our evening newscast, and also, stick here on WCNC Plus as we can continue to follow the story. And just to catch up, if you need to, we have an article laying out sort of the timeline and everything you need to know as far as the story right now on our website, WCNC.com. And on our app, WCNC Charlotte mobile app. All right, so let's go back now to D.C., where President Trump is continuing to have his cabinet meeting that is still underway. Let's take a listen in to what's happening right now.
We had outages for a couple of 30-second outages a couple months ago. We have, in 2 months, Mr. President, it's historic speed, laid new fiber lines for communication. and tested those in the next month. So those new lines for the Philly Tracon that controls the Newark airspace, they're up and running, lightning fast speed. June was the most on-time June ever in the history of Newark for air travel. So that's going incredibly well. By the way, we shouldn't have dealt with this because Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg had moved the center from New York to Philadelphia. They didn't test the lines. They didn't do the work, which is what brought us all these problems. But in the big beautiful bill, we got $12.5 billion. This is a historic investment in air traffic control. And so what the money is going to allow us to do is move from copper to fiber all over the country. So new copper lines. We think we can do that in a year and a half to 2 years. We have radar that dates back to the 1950s, some of it from the 60s and 70s. We get brand new radar across the country as well. We have some infrastructure money to build TRACONs and centers, the en route centers that control the traffic across the country. So this is a massive new start to rebuild air traffic control. And again, this is dilapidated. Americans think that their government takes care of them and makes the investments that are necessary to make the country work. And for 30, 40 years, the investments were made. And so under your leadership and direction, we are making those investments. And per your direction, right now, we are interviewing what we could call a general contractor or an integrator. One company to manage. It's a massive project. The FAA is not qualified to manage this kind of a project. So we are now going through the process of finding who that one company will be to manage the whole project. We'll interview those companies together and make that selection. So we'll write one big beautiful check to one beautiful company that'll be responsible for this whole build. But if I could just make one last point, this is not enough money. We're going to need more. But this is a massive new start. Our biggest investment. We'll need some more money on top of it, but a great start from the big beautiful.
It's a starter. It was very important to us, and just to cover that, there have been accidents, and my pilots, I would often hear them say, "Oh, good," and they would use a different system, a different country to land in New York. They'd use the radar and other things from a different country. I said, "What's that?" He says, "Oh, our system is so bad," and I knew that would start. And Boot Edge came in, and what they did was so crazy because they hooked in copper into fiber, into steel, they had all different systems. They had hundreds and hundreds of contractors, different contractors for different airports. They spent billions of dollars, and they made the system worse because you can't hook copper into fiber. It doesn't work that way. You just can't do it. It's not doable, but they tried to do it. Didn't work out too well. And in the end, it was just a complete disaster. We want to have one great company. Now, Raytheon's going to bid, IBM's going to bid. We have 5 or 6 bidders that really are good and do this stuff. And we want one, because I know about overruns, I look at the railroad out in California, headed up by one of the worst governors in our country, who I used to get along with actually, but he's just, when you lose 25,000 houses and you would have had your cities burned down. If we didn't step in, Los Angeles would have been burned to the ground. But you look at that, and I said, I really know how to build, and you got to have one guy, one contractor, one great one, whether it's IBM or Raytheon is good, but you have 4 or 5 that are really, really great, and they're all bidding against each other. But you don't want to have one doing the wire, and one doing the digging, and one doing the demolition, and then they're all saying, they all blame each other because they're saying they were late, and therefore you have to pay me millions of dollars more money. I know the system so well. And we're going to have a great company do the whole thing. We're going to get a fantastic price. Maybe we'll get them, they're very big and very strong, and maybe we'll get them to make a contribution toward getting it done at the right price. But we're going to have a great system. When we finish, we will have the best system on earth done by one of the 2 or 3 best companies. There are only a few companies can do this. This is not. But if you would have seen what this other group did, they were going crazy. They had, I heard 3,000 contractors, and then when it all came together, guess what? It didn't work. It's a disaster. So we are we're going to have in a pretty short period of time, it's going to take us about 2 years to build it, and we'll have a contract given out probably over the next couple of months. We have some great bidders, some great companies that want to do the job. You're going to have great air traffic control.
Can I just make one last point on this? So the last administration signed a contract with an American company to fix the copper to fiber, and that contract was a 15-year contract. The system is failing today, but that's how idiotic and incompetent the last administration was. And under your leadership, we're saying, listen, we don't have time. We don't have 15 years. We don't have 5 years. We have to do it right now. And so the president always talks about on time and on budget. We have embraced that. We are going to be on time and on budget. And by the way, you mentioned a train out in California. Stay tuned for probably give us 5 days and you'll have an answer on what's going to happen with the $4 billion that we potentially have invested on a train that's going to go nowhere. It's going to be $120 billion that'll never connect San Francisco to LA. Again, the last administration wasted so much money on projects that never work. If you're going to have high-speed rail, you're going to invest billions, we should actually have high-speed rail in America, not boondoggles that fund political friends and allies. And
they have from San Francisco, inside of San Francisco, to inside of Los Angeles. It should have never been built because airplanes do it better. And you could drive it. You could drive it. No problem with driving it. The roads aren't even crowded. So they were going to do this. Somebody's idea. Somebody got paid off a lot of money, and they started it. It was going to cost a very small amount of money. And it ended up costing literally hundreds of times what the original. And now what they did is they said, well, going into the city is too big a deal, so we'll leave it 25 miles short of the city. So now they're leaving it. They're not going to finish it, really. It's not the same project. So now they're leaving it outside of San Francisco and outside, short of each. They just want to get it done, and it's. I've never seen cost overruns. You know, if you have a cost overrun of 10%, you should be ashamed of yourself. 20%, you should not do any more jobs. This is a cost overrun of 2,000%, something like that. It's unlimited, and it's not finished. And maybe it will never get finished. And I told Sean, look at it from every standard, but we don't want to, you know, we have federal money going into that. And it's like throwing it out the window. So whatever you can do to stop it.
$15 billion and not one track has been laid. $15 billion, 16 years into the project, not one track.
Mr. President,
on New York, you're the most prominent Republican in the country from the city. What do you want to...
Anywhere else? I don't want to be a wise guy. Perhaps I can. Maybe Marco.
But how do you want Republican voters in the city to vote in the upcoming mayoral election? Should they vote for Eric Adams? Should they vote for Sliwa? Should they pick someone else?
Look, number one, you have a communist running, and you shouldn't vote for him. He's a disaster. He's leading. He's got the Democrat nomination because that shows you where the Democrats have gone. He actually wants to take over the grocery stores of John Catsimatidis, who's a great guy, a rich guy, grocer, does a good job, wants to take over. He actually called me the other day. He's concerned his stores are going to be taken from him, and they won't be run like John runs them. Believe me, he runs a good operation. But he actually said he wants to run his own grocery stores. No, this is a man who's not very capable, in my opinion, other than he's got a good line of bullshit, and he's convinced them to go with him. Now, as you know, Cuomo, who does have capability, is running, but he got knocked out, and now they're running as you have Eric Adams, the current mayor, you have Cuomo, and you have Curtis Sliwa. And Curtis runs every 4 years. He seems to be a fixture on the running scale. But you know, it's I'm not getting involved. But I can tell you this, I used to say we will not ever be a socialist country, right? Well, I'll say it again, we're not going to have, if a communist gets elected to run New York.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Right now, it is 1:14 and happening live. That is President Trump there holding a cabinet meeting at the White House. It's been going on for a while, talking about numerous things regarding his administration. So that is happening. We'll get back to that in a moment, but we want to turn our attention to Texas, where big story, not only in the state of Texas, but frankly across the nation. We're talking about the devastating flooding in Texas. And today we got updates from officials, from state officials, from local officials there. More than 100 people killed in this flooding. Again, just devastating stuff. We want to send it now to Vanessa Croy from KENS 5 in San Antonio, our colleagues here in San Antonio. Vanessa, thank you for your time. Where are you right now? Kind of walk us through what's happening there.
Yeah, Nick, and you just mentioned the first part. Here in Kerr County, this is Kerrville, where they have just reported 56 adults reported have died in these deadly floods and 30 children. We just heard from the lieutenant of our Texas game wardens here, and he was talking about mental wellness for all these first responders out here. And he said finding the body of any person is extremely tragic, but the body of a child is just extremely, extremely tragic. So this is a staging area for our first responders. We have everything from local level, all our local first responders, our state troopers, and then we have federal assistance as well. We have choppers in the air all day, still out in search and recovery efforts, and it is a massive effort for those first responders out here. So if you think about it, there are mountains and mountains of debris that is just littering the riverbanks, and they have first responders on foot, and they have to comb through those piles of debris layer by layer, hoping they can find one of the missing people. In fact, they can't even tell us how many people are missing because they still don't feel that they have enough reports to confirm that number for us. So, you know, to put it in perspective for you, a friend of mine in this area said the immense pain is unreal. It's very difficult for these communities. And the other thing is, if you think about these local first responders, many of them, this is a small community, many of them are out trekking through this treacherous, terrain, looking for neighbors, looking for friends. It's incredibly tragic and difficult for this community.
And Vanessa, we've heard countless stories from victims, families, the first responders, as you just mentioned. Any stories stick out to you that, again, I know you've heard and seen a lot, but anything that sticks out to you?
You know, many of my colleagues have been out in the ground, boots on the ground, talking to people that have lost loved ones, that have lost their homes. I mean, there are many homes out here that are they're gone. They're slabs. People have lost their RVs, their automobiles, and we've had people out. But I can tell you, my colleague Sue Kellberg talked to a man who walked out his backyard and saw a woman clinging to a tree, and he was able. First responders came out and rescued her, and they took her in and gave her clothes and gave her a shower, let her take a shower. I mean, that's just how wonderful these communities are. On Friday, when we first learned overnight, we were at one of the parks here that was hit very hard, and a woman came up to me with her family, and they didn't have any shoes on, and they were frantically, desperately searching for their brother, and they didn't know where else to go. She said, "I've stopped a few officers, and I don't know who else to ask." And she came to us, and we gave her the only thing that we knew was a phone number. But just people out here, it's so hard for them, especially the ones that are still waiting for their loved ones to be found. In fact, I'm sure you've heard about Camp Mystic. There were over 700 campers out there, and we just learned today that there are still 5 campers and 1 counselor missing. I mean, I just cannot imagine what those parents are going through.
Wow. Before I let you go, you've been so generous with your time this afternoon. What does tomorrow, what does the next couple of days look like for the folks there in that area?
Yes, we just heard from a local county and city officials here. Let me look at my notes. I'm going to read you what the sheriff told us, because right now they're telling us that their main priority, all their resources are focused on bringing people home. He said our top 3, locating those people, identifying them, and notifying their next of kin. And then he also left us with something else, that their last live rescue was on Friday. So these recovery missions are ongoing. They will be ongoing. The sheriff saying today, we will not stop until everyone is brought home.
Vanessa, thank you for your time. You guys be safe out there. Again, that is KENS 5 there in San Antonio, Texas. Vanessa Croy, they're covering the flooding, the devastating flooding in that area. Again, thank you, Vanessa. It's countless stories, as you just heard there, from that devastation, from that flooding there. Still a long way to go, but you kind of get a sense of what's happening there in that community. All right, so we want to shift now. So I know President Trump is live and his cabinet meeting is happening, but we want to take you to the press conference from earlier. Vanessa gave us some good insight from that press conference this morning from Kerr County officials. Let's take you there now in case you missed it.
Large search and rescue effort, including local, state, federal, and volunteer agencies, continue. As of 8 a.m. Central Time, 87 deceased have been recovered in Kerr County, including 56 adults and 30 children. Identification is pending for 19 adults and 7 children, with 1 additional person identified. At present, 5 Camp Mystic campers and 1 counselor still remain unaccounted for. We ask private boats to stay off the Guadalupe River to allow search and rescue teams to operate without any interference. This is a tragic time for us. We're so grateful and thankful for all the resources that have been provided to us to do this job. And I can assure you we will not stop until this mission is complete. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to City Mayor.
Thank you for being here. I'm Joe Herring Jr. I'm Mayor of the City of Kerrville. I want to reassure our community and those families that the city, the county, the state, and the federal experts are working together, not separately, but as one team. If you go inside the Emergency Operations Center, you don't see silos. You see one team. I want to talk briefly about in-kind donations. The outpouring of generosity has been tremendous, and we are grateful. We are working on a new system to accept donations, and when those plans are complete, we will post them online on the city's Facebook page. We are grateful. We need a new system to handle the generosity of the world. Financial donations can still go to communityfoundation.net. That's the community foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Again, grateful for the generosity of the world. Over and over, I've asked you to pray. It occurred to me that I haven't asked you for what to pray specifically. Please pray for those who mourn, for those who wait, and for those who help. Now I'd like to call on Lieutenant Colonel Ben Baker.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ben Baker, Lieutenant Colonel for Texas Game Wardens. I'd like to start out by thanking the Mayor, Sheriff, Chief, our local state partners, Texas Department of Public Safety, and the many others that have responded to this tragic event. We as Texas are strong, and together we face adversity. Your Texas Game Wardens responded in the early mornings of Friday to this tragic event, along with many other local and state partners. Since the early mornings of Friday, your Texas Gamers have had over 300 game wardens in the area, serving the people of the state of Texas and the citizens of Kerr County. Among that, we've searched 26 river miles since the tragic event has started. We've had approximately 444 rescues, 30 recoveries. Some of our resources and assets we have dedicated to this tragic event include 2 helicopters with hoist teams, 12 drone teams, 10 K-9 units, 9 swiftwater boat crews, 15 airboats, 16 UTVs, and 169 four-wheel drive vehicles. Your Texas game wardens will remain here and serving the community. We just ask you to continue to pray for the victims, for the families, for your first responders, for everyone involved. We'll open it up now to questions. If anybody has any.
Can you talk about how challenging it is for you guys in the mud, the big trees? What's it been like, the different terrain?
No, thank you for that question. Extremely challenging. You know, we've got, of course, your Texas game wardens out there, your local, your state partners, Texas Task Force 1. We've got the National Forest Service out there. We've got A&M Forest Service. We've got numerous responders with specialized capabilities where we've got these large pile of debris. And with our canines and you know, when we're trying to make these recoveries, these large piles can be very obstructive. And to get deep into these piles, it's very hazardous. And those specialized teams have to go in there layer by layer because our first responders, also the safety of them is concerned. So it's extremely treacherous, time consuming, it's dirty work, the water's still there. So we're having to go layer by layer, peeling these off to make those recoveries. So we're...
What about mentally? Like when you guys stumble across someone who may be deceased, how do you process that?
Absolutely. We process it the best we can. We have professionals in place, our crisis intervention team. All the agencies have some members representing there, and officer wellness is a first responder wellness is a key component to these operations. So we're maintaining and monitoring our officer wellness, our first responder wellness. We're making sure they have the support. It's very tragic whenever you see human life, but to see a child and that loss of life is extremely tragic.
More rain is expected to come down west of us, and eventually it's going to get down to Guadalupe River. Is that going to put a halt to the search? And if not, how are you going to change the trajectory of the search and rescue operations?
So with the water coming down, that is always a concern, and I'm sure you've been monitoring the last couple of days where we've had some reports of maybe some additional water coming in. Obviously, that's going to impact the search and recovery efforts. You know, us with numerous other agencies do have air capabilities, drone capabilities. We've got numerous fixed wing, rotary helicopters here. So it will alter our patrol patterns and alter our searches, but it won't deter them.
Can you outline what specific discussions and actions were taken between the time the first flood emergency alert came in at 1:14 a.m. and then when the started flooding comes hours later? What were the specific actions and discussions that happened in those hours?
Can you repeat that again, please?
Sure, absolutely. I would like to know if you could outline, please, what the specific actions and discussions were that local officials took between 1:14 a.m., that's when the first flood emergency came out, later when the river first started flooding. What happened in those hours?
What I can tell you, when I was first notified, it was around the 4 to 5 area. One of my sergeants was in dispatch when the first calls started coming in, the actual 911 calls come in.
Like at 4 in the morning?
It was between 4 and 5 when I got notified. Okay, but prior to that, in that 3 to 4 area, my understanding is, and we're in the process of trying to put a timeline. Take a little bit of time. As I've told you several times, that is not my priority this time. There's 3 priorities. That's locating the people out there, identifying and notifying the next of kin. That is what I'm taking as my job as sheriff here to do. Okay.
With all due respect, sir, I think that the community here is asking these questions. What happened? When did it happen? Was the emergency manager awake at the time? Did they push the button to issue an emergency alert?
Sir, it's not that easy when you just push a button, okay? There's a lot more to that. And we've told you several times.
So did it happen, sir?
I can't tell you at this time. Okay.
You can't tell me if the emergency manager of the county actually issued an emergency alert.
Okay, Sheriff,
Shimon, just give me a second.
Emergency Operations Center. Who runs
Let him answer the question.
The emergency
I'll come back to you. I ain't going nowhere.
Appreciate it.
Who runs the Emergency Operations Center?
We have a communication center, Okay, we have a communication center. That's where the calls actually go to the police department, then they're forwarded to us.
But leading up to this, in monitoring the weather, there's, in any large city, in any state, there's an Office of Emergency Management that is monitoring the weather, that is watching and listening and getting briefings. Who was getting those briefings in this city, in this county? Who was receiving that information, and who would have ultimately made the decision to evacuate, hearing what was coming in from the Weather Service and all?
Okay, what we would have done when we get notified, okay, I'm going to tell you.
You're not emergency management, though, right? The sheriff's not EOC.
No, there is no, I meant that's the city. Yeah.
So we understand you have many questions.
Right.
Hang on.
No, I understand, but you're not going to answer the question because that's up to the city manager and the mayor to answer.
Correct.
It's the county emergency.
We understand you have many questions.
The judge is not here.
We understand that, but right now, this team up here is focused on bringing people home. That's our focus. All those questions will be answered, but the priority right now
It seems like you're
is bringing people home.
We totally understand that, and we incredible work that is being done by those first responders. We're seeing them out there muddy and sweaty and grinding it out day after day. But your community is asking these questions.
And we will get answers. Right now, all of our resources are focused to recovery.
Who was in charge of the Emergency Operations Center at the time that was getting any briefing?
Do we have another question?
I do. I think I'd like to focus on what local people can be looking for. We're looking at some erosion in roads and safety in them traveling. What can we tell people who live here right now and what they can do in their daily life? Should they worry about traveling on roads? Do we know anything about that infrastructure?
Sure, absolutely. Jonathan Lamb, Kerrville Police Department. So we know that there's substantial road damage. Some roads have been closed for safety. We've got crews out there in the county shoring them up and making sure that people can travel to and from. What we're asking for the public to do to assist us is if they believe that they have seen someone, a victim, notify emergency services. Call 911, let us know, or use our non-emergency numbers, area code 830-257-8181. Contact our dispatch team and we will send officers out there. We also ask folks to limit their travel. Our first responders have had a very difficult time getting to where they need to go because of the amount of people who are flooding our roadways. We understand there's natural curiosity. People want to come here and see the flood damage. Now is not the time for sightseeing. This operation is ongoing and continuous, and it will continue. I've got time for one more question. Last question. As far as I know, the last live rescue, unless there's new information, and I don't believe there is, was made on Friday. All right, I'm afraid that's going to have to do it for this morning.
Can someone answer if the bodies have been released to the families, Sheriff?
Excuse me.
Have the bodies been released to the families?
Some. But they're at autopsy.
You're still missing. Do we have an estimate among the general population, not just the girls from Mystic, even just credible reports? Is it hundreds still? Is there any estimate among the general population of how many people are missing?
No. I've told y'all several times, it's hard to know that number. No, we don't. I know the numbers that we have found, and that's all I know.
You still don't want to tell us who is.
All right, so we're going to continue our operations. The next time that we're going to be in front of y'all will be at 5 p.m. right back here. If there is a critical update, again, we'll provide that.
All right, so that is a press conference from earlier before we got on the stream. That was officials there in Kerr County, Texas, giving us an update on the situation there. So here's the latest, just to catch you up. The search for victims continues today after flash floods in central Texas killed at least 104 people over the 4th of July holiday weekend and left others still missing. And that devastation along the Guadalupe River outside of San Antonio has drawn a massive search effort. And as you saw there, officials facing questions over preparedness. But back here at home, how it ties in, we have organizations and folks deploying there in Texas to help those folks that are in great need right now. One of those organizations, Billy Graham Rapid Response Team. Right now we have Josh Holland, the International Director of the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team. Josh, thank you for your time.
Yeah, Nick, hey, thank you for having us on.
Can you walk us through when did you guys get there and talk about the work you've been doing since you got there?
So we actually had crisis-trained chaplains on the ground within several hours of the flooding on the 4th of July. These chaplains who live in the San Antonio area, about an hour and a half or so away from where I'm at here in Kerrville, Texas, were welcomed in a reunification center where parents were waiting actually at the time to be alerted as to the status of their children who were at the camp. Camp Mystic specifically. So our chaplains have had ministry really here since just several hours after the storm. We have a team of about 10 crisis-trained chaplains who are trained in clinically in understanding grief and trauma. And we know there's no words to say at all that would make anything better for families that are living through their worst nightmare right now. But we have people here that feel called just to be a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, and to offer spiritual and emotional care during a devastating time like this.
Josh, for those who are not familiar with what you guys do, can you sort of talk to us about what Billy Graham Rapid Response Team, the job that you guys do?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team started after September 11th, 2001. Franklin Graham, the president of our organization and ministry, was at ground zero just a few days after the terrorist attack in our country and felt like God would call us as a ministry to be able to raise up an army of chaplains, crisis-trained chaplains that could respond all over the world in a moment's notice to natural disasters, man-made disasters. And so we have now around the world around 2,000 volunteer chaplains that go and deploy, respond to a natural disaster, whether it's a hurricane or a flood, fire, earthquake, tornado, man-made disasters like terrorist incidents, wars, mass shootings. And so, again, as I mentioned, during tragedy and during crisis, there's no magic words. There's nothing to say in a situation like this here in Texas that'll make anything better. But we as a Christian ministry feel like God has called us, like the Bible says, to mourn with those who mourn, to listen. Sometimes people need to process and verbalize what they're going through. We train our chaplains just to be there and to listen and to share that in the midst of the deepest, darkest valleys in life, that we as Christians believe there's a God in heaven that loves us so much that he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to take our sin so we could be with him in heaven. So that's our ministry, is just to be here without the answers, but to just let people know we love you and God loves you.
Josh, you guys are on the front line of, as you mentioned, tragedy. It's some of the worst moments, days of folks' lives. How do you guys process that? How do you work through that? Because I know that, in a way, it takes a toll on you guys. I know you're there to help, but how do you process all of that?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. That's a great question. There's a clinical term called secondhand trauma or secondhand grief, where you might not have experienced the situation yourself or the circumstance yourself, but for days, sometimes our chaplains are here up to a week at a time, 12-hour days of listening to stories of heartache that just rip your heart out, loss, trauma, death, destruction of homes, property. And so it does take a toll on the caregivers, on the chaplains. We're very intentional about offering support for our chaplains, debriefing, this kind of thing upon their return home. We have a specialized team that helps with that. But yeah, it's something that not just our ministry, but everybody here, there's so many great organizations and ministries here in Texas wanting to help right now. And it's a lot of pain. It's really unspeakable pain. And so it's important for those that are trying to help to make sure they take time to decompress themselves.
Josh, thank you for the work that you guys do. I know you're out there again in Texas after the aftermath of that flooding. Again, that is Josh Holland, International Director of the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team. Thank you again for what you're doing out there, and also be safe. And thank you for your time here on the show.
Thank you, Nick.
All right. Yeah, that is, again, just one of the organizations working to help those folks there in Texas bounce back. So, again, we will continue to give you updates here on WCNC Plus as we get new developments. One of those new developments, let's take you live. This is live, right, James?
Yeah, this is live.
Okay, this is, I don't know if you can see there, that's Governor Greg Abbott, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, boarding the helicopter there. About the survey, a lot of that damage there in the hill country there in Kerr County, Kerrville area. We have video from him yesterday surveying on the ground, but he will get an aerial look at what's happening there in the aftermath. Again, just to catch you up, the flash floods in Central Texas have killed at least 104 people and left dozens more missing as search efforts continue Tuesday. Again, that is Texas Governor Greg Abbott boarding a helicopter there as he surveys some of that damage there in Central Texas. All right, so look, we've had flooding in Texas, but we also have flooding in central North Carolina. So earlier today, Governor Josh Stein, actually before we got on the stream, he was in Alamance County, which is, Alamance County is right outside of, I guess, a better view of it. It's between Greensboro and Durham or Chapel Hill. So they experienced some flooding from tropical storm or depression, Chantal. Am I using the correct tropical depression, shall I say?
Yeah, it made landfall as a storm, eventually weakening as a depression. But, I mean, don't let the name fool you. Names don't matter, right, Nick? We constantly hear from our meteorologists the impacts are what matter. And when we take a look at some of those aerial videos that we've seen from across North Carolina of that record level flooding, it was impactful for sure. And
you know, I know we talked a lot about Orange County, Durham County, Chapel Hill, which is in Orange County. Alamance County, some parts of Alamance County borders Orange County. They received as much as 10 inches of rain on Sunday. And the Haw River, which runs right through the heart of Alamance County, reached a peak of 32.47 feet. That is shy of the record, which is 32.8 feet. And that's from Hurricane Fran back in 1996. So this to give you some perspective on what is happening there and what has happened there. So again, as I mentioned, Governor Josh Stein was in Alamance County today. Let's listen in to what he had to say as he was there to survey the aftermath and damage from that flooding there in Alamance County.
Y'all ready? We're here at Lake Michael in Mebane and just on the Orange County side of the Orange-Alamance border. Thank goodness that this spillway did not break. If it had, the consequences would have been devastating. And as we all know, the consequences of Chantal, Tropical Depression Chantal, were devastating as it was. Homes destroyed, businesses impaired, and worst of all, lives lost. We know of a handful of reported deaths to date. We're working with the Department of Health and Human Services to come up with a final number, and when we have those numbers, we'll of course share them with you. I'm here with Secretary of Transportation Joey Hopkins and Emergency Management Director Will Ray. Colonel Johnson with the Highway Patrol is right here. And storms like this show us what is best about North Carolina. We had these guys, the troopers. We were here with Sheriff Blackwood, Sheriff Johnson from Orange and Alamance County, Sheriff Roberson and Chatham. These guys and their deputies were working overnight, knocking on doors, getting people out of their homes, diverting traffic to keep people from falling into harm's way. And just normal people, regular people, looking out for their neighbors. And it's what shows, what reveals the truth of North Carolina, which is when people need help, the people of North Carolina will be there for their neighbors. We got a lot of work to do. We're in the assessment phase of the scale of the damage. That's something that Director Ray will be working on. There is more weather to come. There's rain coming later this week. This ground is fully saturated. We hope and pray it's not a heavy storm, but folks need to be on their toes If you have not signed up for your county's emergency alert system, I urge you to do that. Go to your county emergency website, sign up so that if a storm comes your way, you will get alerted and can take action to protect your loved ones. The heartbreak that families across the Piedmont are experiencing this week, I know one of the victim's sons very well, and their pain is pain that we would wish on no one. So let's all do everything we can to take care over the next few days to make sure that no one else in North Carolina experiences a loss of life to this storm. Thank you for being here. Happy to take some questions.
1 second. So there's a lot of y'all, and we want to get us out of the sun as fast as possible. I do apologize. We're out here. So if folks can stick to one question if possible, and if you can give your name and outlet if possible.
And if
Thank
you have a question for anyone here, it's fine.
Laura Leslie, WRAL. Are you going to declare a state of emergency, or is this a county state of emergency? And what is the difference in terms of funding and resources?
I'll let Director Ray augment my answer, but this was not a statewide event. It was a local event. A number of the counties impacted declared a state of emergency. They had the resources locally to handle it. There is an emergency response system where when they need more help, they can request it. And there were 8 different units that came from different parts of the state, from Louisville, from Stokes County, from other parts of North Carolina, to help out their neighbors in need. So there was no need for us to declare a state emergency, but I'll let Director Ray supplement that answer.
Thank you, Governor. I think, Laura, as you know, I think, and as the Governor said, the framework here in North Carolina is scalable to meet whatever the need is. And so as we looked at what the potential impact area was going to be, it was isolated to really the as the Governor said, 4 of them did declare states of emergency to allow them locally to implement some of their authorities that are needed. At a state level, our role is how do we support those local communities in meeting their needs, whether it's something like you just heard about of is it pumps, is it water, is it setting up shelters, is it moving in search and rescue teams. And so as the Governor said, we moved 8 teams that are a part of the statewide search and rescue program in to support those impacted communities with their very specific search and rescue needs. Our recovery team is moving in today for those communities that are ready to talk about damage assessment. As you know, we have some state declaration programs that we can turn on that are based on damage assessments locally, and so those are things that we're going to assess right now as far as what's available for local units of government, what public infrastructure. I think, as you heard Secretary Hopkins say earlier, this is going to be an expensive event also for DOT, and so as we look at available support, I think our commitment is we're going to work with those local communities as fast as we can to do those assessments to determine what, at least at a state level, what resources we can turn on to support some of the devastation that folks have really have experienced over the last couple of days.
Governor, it's Clifton Dowell from The Insider. Can you talk a little bit about, seeing this under construction, what's considered sort of the boring part of government, which is infrastructure and upkeep and all that, particularly with Texas in mind? To what degree, recovery is big, but to what degree is government responsible for thinking ahead to avoid bigger disasters in the future?
Well, I want to compliment Town of Mebane because they built this. We've learned that this lake is normally 10 feet lower than it is today. So when they were rebuilding the spillway or building a new spillway to enhance its safety, they decided to put in an interim dam far in excess of what anybody would reasonably consider necessary, but thank goodness they did. So we all collectively owe our words of appreciation to the engineers and the contractors for the Town of Mebane. Similarly, in Asheville, their big drinking water reservoir, just a couple years before Hurricane Helene hit, they put in a new spillway. Had that spillway not been installed, and it was a decision made by a couple county commissioners with local government folks back about 15, 20 years ago, had they not done that and that dam breached, the deaths would have been catastrophic. Thousands of people in this state would have died. Thank God that's not the story. The story is government came together and took reasonable precautions to keep people safe. That means we need government That costs a little bit of money. Nobody likes to pay taxes, but it's times like this when we say, thank goodness we have a well-functioning government.
Governor Dina Harley with CBS 17 News. Obviously, we're out here today, but yesterday morning, people were still being evacuated from their homes. There were still water rescues, and there was a lot of questions about what your office was doing in the immediacy. Walk us through what yesterday looked like for you personally and your office.
Well, regular contact with emergency management. These storms, the immediate response is always local. It's the local sheriff, it's the local police, it's their emergency management crews, and they are in regular communication, practically hourly communication with our folks in emergency management, so that they're telling us, what do you need? Well, the water pump is out. We don't have fresh water. Okay, we're going to come and create a water distribution system in Hillsborough. We have a lot of people who've been evacuated. Okay, we're going to help you put forward a temporary shelter. We've got people who are still stranded in their homes. Okay, we're going to bring in water rescue crews from around the state. If it were a massive storm, Will would have been on the phone with his counterparts in neighboring states saying, can you send in resources to help us? That was not necessary in the storm. We were able to handle it all with North Carolina resources, but it was more than this region could handle on its own. That's how the system works, and thank goodness it worked well.
Governor Courtney Davis with Spectrum News. With these storms that we keep seeing, between Helene and now this storm, what is your administration doing to make sure that you're funding local emergency management services and the infrastructure for smaller towns too, along some of these rivers?
Well, I'm concerned that the General Assembly has not yet passed a budget. We're working off of last year's budget. We need a new budget that will make sure that our state emergency management is well funded. There are real funding concerns with the federal government. A lot of our emergency management personnel is paid for from federal funding. We've been working hard to secure that funding so we don't experience widespread layoffs. Real concerned about the federal government stepping away from some of the resilience investment that we need to make as a state. We know these storms are coming. They're coming with greater frequency and intensity. So what we have to do is make sure that infrastructure like this contemplates that kind of weather event so that this dam does not breach, so that it does not swallow up communities across Alamance, Orange counties. So we have a lot of investments to do. We're in regular contact with our federal partners, with the General Assembly, to try to make sure we have the resources we need to keep people safe.
Governor, ABC 45 News, Bailey.
I have a question over here.
ABC 45 News, Bailey Stamos. Just being out here yesterday, speaking to the residents of Mebane, a lot of them came and visited here to see for themselves because, a lot of rumors are circulating that the dam broke. It did not. Can you just give a message to people of the Triad and just to the state? I know people are very apprehensive following Helene last year. Rest assured that their government has their back.
Well, the government certainly has the back of the people of North Carolina. We also have to have people have the back of each other. And of course starts with each of us having our own back. That means listening. Listen to your local weather forecast. Listen to your local emergency management warnings. People have got to stay tuned. If you have not subscribed to your county's emergency alert system, I urge you to do so that if something comes that is unexpected, and unfortunately these storms are coming with an intensity that we are not expected, then you will get that alert and can take action. We are going to do everything in our power to keep people safe. We have a lot more weather coming this week. The ground is heavily saturated. Stay tuned, listen to your local weather, make sure that you keep yourself out of harm's way, and we will do everything we can to help you.
Governor, I have a question right here. Yes, Erin Burnett, WXI 12 News. So talk to us a little bit about that decision making of why a state of emergency wasn't declared. What you guys are, who you are working with, the National Weather Service, what that prediction looks like.
I'll hand that off to Will about the weather system, but in terms of a statewide emergency, this was a localized event, and 4 of the 5 affected counties declared their own emergencies, which gave them the authority they needed to respond accordingly. We stand at the ready to help any local government that is in need, and Will was in repeated conversation with his counterparts at the local level to make sure we were getting them the swift water rescue teams. We were getting them the water. We were getting them the emergency shelters. Whatever it is that they needed, we were on to deliver. But Will, I'll let you talk about the weather.
Thank you, sir.
So I think as you've heard us talk about, when I say the state emergency response team, that's not just the state EOC in Raleigh. That's not just something we stand up, every now and again. I think that's the steady state partnership that we talk about: local, state, tribal, federal, private sector, nonprofits, and our volunteer agencies. And again, I think we stand here today and we see a public-private partnership. The public works staff, your local government is very much a part of effective preparedness and response, as is our private sector, to make sure that we're protecting everyone. And so that team is, as the governor said, ready to support our local communities with whatever they need. We have the authorities that we need based on the scope and impact of the event to be able to move the teams that our local community said we need help with. We were able to do that. And we're able to work with our partners with the National Weather Service, with the Weather Prediction Center, and other forecasting agencies to get real-time operational impact information of where we're seeing flooding, what the different levels of rainfall are. They are very much a piece of what we're doing, not just as we look at the forecast, so a couple days ahead of time, but they are actually part of the response as we're moving through, making sure that we at a state level, as well as our local communities, have the best situational awareness that they need to be able to make the right operational decision, to get those resources in where they need as quickly and as safely as they can.
Morgan, this has to be the last question.
Yeah, I got you. Last question.
So, Governor, we know the dam was at risk of critical failure. We just heard town officials talk about how it wasn't designed to, handle this kind of rain. I know that you spoke about rain coming on Wednesday. What's being done in the interim? Like, how are you all preparing for Wednesday's storm?
Yeah, well, what they have pumped here, and they're looking for more pumps, so that if there is an expected amount of rain, the lake can hold it. And they're already working to repair the spillway so that it holds in case of more rain. Obviously, people need to stay attuned to what's going on. We think that we're in a situation where it can be handled, but please listen to your local weather, listen to your local emergency alerts to know whether you need to take action. Thank you all so much for being here.
All right. Thank you, everybody. If you have any more additional questions, you can reach out to GovPress at NC.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Right now, we are nearing the top of the hour. That was a press conference from earlier. Governor Josh Stein touring Alamance County, impacted by Tropical Storm Chantal from over the weekend. That area, along with other areas, including Orange County, Durham County, seeing even Person County, Chatham County, to name a couple of more, impacted by record level flooding. You see it right there on your screen. So on the bottom right here, we are tracking a bit of breaking news. 2 lanes closed, maybe. We were getting reports of
what we were told.
Let's just say we had some potential backups on 77, unusual backups on 77, because usually 77 is pretty backed up just from typical traffic, but we're monitoring the situation there on 77. If something comes about, we'll make sure to keep you updated, but this is a live look on I-77. Do we have the actual exit?
Billy Graham.
It's Billy Graham. Okay.
That's
Billy,
right.
Yeah, I thought it looked familiar. I know you said it was close.
Now it's saying it's 1 out of 3 lanes closed.
It seems like they've been in the process of clearing
it. It is moving.
Okay, so that's good news. That's good news on this afternoon. Again, we are nearing the top of the hour. That's a live look at I-77. Let's get a check on the forecast. Meteorologist Becca Birdsall is giving us an update on today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday.
Every day.
Because we're weather alert. That's what I was getting to. But here we go.
You know what, AC is going to be your best friend for today, as today's highs will likely be the hottest out of the week ahead. So we just have to get through this afternoon. Right now, already touched 90 degrees, dew point of 71, making it feel like 96 out there. Gorgeous view though, lots of sunshine from our Dallas camera, courtesy of our Mr. Sparky Carolina Cam network. Highs today will soar once again to the upper 90s across the metro area and lower 80s even for the high country. Lots of sunshine to go around. Of course, combining that with the humidity factor, those heat index values will likely be in the lower 100s. Again, just a few degrees shy of that heat advisory criteria, but that is still dangerous heat, which is why we want you to stay weather alert. The average high for this time of year is 90. So today is about 8 degrees above the normal high for this time of year. But temperatures will start to cool down closer to average as we head to your Thursday, and that's where we'll pretty much stay as we end out the work week. But that's also going to be as rain rain chances increase as well. There's still going to be a lot of humidity in the air. It's still going to be a hot week. Tomorrow will also feel close to the triple digits, and then Thursday and Friday still feeling like the upper 90s before heat starts to build once again towards this weekend. Rain chances will still peak as we head from Wednesday through Friday with rounds of heavy rain and thunderstorms, and those are days that we just added to a weather alert. So here's what you need to know. Here are those impacts. Today, a couple of thunderstorms in the forecast, hit or miss, and only a few of us will be seeing them. By the time we get into Wednesday, that's that future cast, that's that coverage. It's much more widespread, and this could lead to some flash flooding, just not for everyone. Also, the potential for a couple of strong to severe thunderstorms containing damaging wind gusts. Right now, not a drop of rain to track from the mountains into the metro. That will change as we get some more of that daytime heating and instability in the atmosphere. Pop-up thunderstorms can be expected, again, just not in everyone's backyard. But the time we get into Wednesday, really starting around 11 o'clock noon, this is when we'll start to see more active weather come in. First starting up in the mountains, and then look at how it increases in coverage later on this afternoon and evening. That's Wednesday, 6 o'clock as you are heading home from work. So that could be a messy commute, especially out on the roadways with those slow moving downpours dumping a lot of rainfall. This will continue into Wednesday night, and you know what? We will do it all again on Thursday, which will only exacerbate those flooding concerns, especially if it's already on top of a place that already saw heaviest downpours on Wednesday. So futurecast rainfall is truly all over the place. What's it really showing is the potential for isolated storms that could produce 1 to even over 3 inches of rainfall. But this is going to be heavily dependent on where the heaviest downpours set up, and not everyone will be seeing them. That's just Carolina weather for you. But again, everyone is under that threat for flash flooding. A medium threat for excessive rainfall as we head into Wednesday. We'll also carry that threat for Thursday and Friday. Again, why we want you to stay weather alert. In addition, the Storm Prediction Center does have us under a low-end threat for severe storms, meaning an isolated storm between Tuesday through Thursday could have some damaging wind gusts associated with it. That's over 60 miles per hour. Of course, when you combine that with heavy rainfall, could see down trees and down power lines. So stay weather alert. Definitely have multiple ways to get watches and warnings, and stay tuned on WCNC Plus 7-day forecast. Lots of red in this 7-day forecast. We are weather alert for the heat today, and then weather alert for heavy rainfall and flash flooding potential between Wednesday and Thursday, carrying the storm chances through the weekend.
All right, you heard Becca there. We are weather alert due to the extreme heat, also storms. So be on the lookout. Make sure you have the app handy. Make sure you stick with us here on WCNC Plus. All right, let's shift now to a very interesting story. So you can find them in neighborhoods all over. We're talking about these light green boxes standing just a few feet tall in between homes. Companies put them there years ago, hook them up for phone service, more recently internet. But after a while, I mean, you forget that they're there, to be honest. But not in one Gastonia neighborhood. Homeowners say their utility boxes are standing out. They're busted. They're falling over. Neighbors fear they're potentially even more dangerous. WCNC Charlotte's Nate Borobito is here in studio. Nate, thank you for joining us. I didn't think about it until I was going over the story today, and I'm like, wow, you do forget that they're there.
You know, I was driving down the road after our photographer Pierre and I went out to this neighborhood, interviewed the folks there, and as I was driving down the road, I started seeing them everywhere. You know, I've got one in my yard. It's, I think, covered by a tree or a shrub. But I never think about it until you actually remember that they're there, and then you start looking at them. At least that's what I've been doing now, because I feel bad for people whose utility boxes have been kind of neglected and have opened up, have exposed the wires, have rusted out. I mean, one woman told us, like, and you're going to hear from her in a minute, but like the lawnmower becomes an issue for them to mow the lawn. And honestly, when this first came to my attention, the concern was safety. Because these are utility boxes. They weren't sure if they were even working anymore. They weren't sure if they had an electrical charge, live power running through them. And so that's kind of how it started out to me, because I knew they were eyesores. Like, who wants that in their front yard? And you have to remember, these don't belong to me or you. These are in the right of way, these utility easements, which means utility companies are solely responsible. Like, you can't move that thing. if you even tried, you'd get in trouble. Like they would find out and you get in trouble for it because it doesn't belong to you. Wow. So anyways, you know, we talked to a couple neighbors over there in the Woodley neighborhood. This is in Gastonia. And really over the last couple of years, these have been a problem. But to the point recently, one of the boxes rusted out. It opened up. They're just wires hanging out all over the place. And if I were them, I'd be concerned about it, just like they were when they talked to me. And what we found out, number one, is that there is not live power running through them. Thank goodness. But also that the only way you can really get anything done about these is if the utility company agrees to do something. So maybe we can hear from a couple of the neighbors over there real quick, and then we can kind of talk a bit more about that, because that's what really surprised me, the fact that it's kind of on you to get it figured out and convince them to fix it, or to call us. And, you know, I'll tell you how it worked out when they called us, but let's listen to them first.
We're concerned as far as not just us, but other people that may have this. That hasn't been used and hasn't been touched for, I don't know, that as far as I can remember, a number of years. And I'm just worried about its safety. I mean, aside from the fact that it's not very pretty, there are large cables back underneath it, and I'm not sure if it's energized or whatever. And I'd just like to have it removed.
That thing is awful. We have to put it together, try and put it together constantly, and it falls apart no matter what we do. When we're trying to mow the yard, it gets caught up on the lawnmowers, it gets caught up under the blades. So it really is a hazard. I don't know much about it, whether it's electrical, whether it's hot, that I could touch it or do much with it. So it is kind of scary having it in the yard and not knowing much about it, and also, you know, not knowing if I can manipulate it or not.
I mean, that's in worse shape than I thought it would be.
I mean, I tried to describe it to you, Nick. The wires were hanging out. What more can I say? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look pretty at all. And imagine that being in your, it's not yours, it's the easement, but it's basically your yard. Yeah. And it's there for a long time. And I looked at the Google Street View on the street, too, and you could see the woman, Gail, you just heard from, like hers has kind of looked like this for a year or two, it looked like to me, based on the Google Street View. So what's frustrating to these people is, number one, it exists. Number two, we've learned that it is functioning. So this was like a relic from the telephone days, first of all. Jeez. But then it kind of transitions to the internet, and it's actually a functioning kind of network internet piece of equipment for one of the companies in our area. But Fred Abramitis, who you heard from a few seconds ago, he called AT&T. This is the company that owns this now. It was Southern Bell, then went to Bell South, then AT&T. That's how old this is. Like Southern Bell was in business at the time. And he called up AT&T, he tells us, and got nothing. Tried to escalate it to his supervisor, no luck. Nobody's going to do anything to help him here. So the next step for him is to talk to us and see what we can do.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, whenever you do investigations, you tell folks, hey, do everything in your power to make it work before you reach out. And that's what these folks did.
Right, and here's what really surprised me. So I asked them, I said, well, have you reached out to state regulators? In this case, I figured the North Carolina Utilities Commission would regulate this company. And he hadn't yet, but what I found out is that North Carolina Utilities Commission does not regulate this phone company and dozens of others. And here's why. This is what really kind of got me. Like in 2011, state lawmakers passed a law that allowed phone companies to elect to be deregulated, so to self-regulate. Now they regulate themselves. So imagine these people call AT&T, they get no response. I tell them there's no regulation. Really the only hope is that we can get the needle moved here for them, which we did, thankfully. But I always say, let us be your last resort. Unless it's so egregious that, you know, there's a safety issue or there's a real imminent danger. Let's try to see if the processes that are in place can resolve this. But the truth is, in this case, there's very few processes available for people.
Wow. What And I'm sure there are many things, but what that comes to mind? What's one thing from the story that you took away from it? Like,
well, number one, I think the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, needs to be notified when stuff like this happens, right? This is the federal regulators that do have some oversight over companies across the United States. Now, this is the federal government, so it's not hyper-local, right? But the FCC basically wants people to reach out to them whenever you have an issue with any kind of communications situation, because they want to monitor trends nationwide. And that's something that interests me. So this won't be in our story tonight at 6, but it's already online, by the way, at WCNC.com. You'll see this little nugget. I analyzed the FCC data from complaints to try to get an idea, how frequent is this? Is it on the rise? And you don't get that granular. So we don't know this specific issue. But we do know when it comes to phone and internet, in North and South Carolina, equipment only, the number of complaints reached a 10-year high last year. So since 2015, there's been more than 2,000 complaints. These are just the people that go through the process of filing complaints. Again, it could be any kind of equipment issue with their internet or their phone. This is a piece of equipment. And so I just think that's interesting that for whatever reason, equipment problems have increased in the Carolinas, over the last 10 years, especially over the last couple of years.
Is it because of the age of the equipment?
It's hard to tell. I mean, look, we're in a changing period. We went from remember phone lines?
Yeah.
Like, I hate to.
No,
I
remember.
I remember. You had a phone line in your house. I know we did. Because I'm older than you.
You have a rotary. My grandparents had a rotary phone.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So there was a phone somewhere that you used back in the day, and then we kind of switched to the internet, and then it was wireless internet, and so I think that's part of it. Like, it's just continuously changing.
Right. Yeah.
And in this case, this is a piece of equipment that Fred told me has been around as long as his home has been around. I mean, more than 30 years.
Wow.
So, this is an older piece of equipment, and I believe they're talking about his specific utility box, because his isn't the only one. But they ended up putting some electrical tape around it, put it back together, put some electrical tape around it. And I'm like, come on, that can't be a permanent fix, right? And they said, no, it's temporary. We've identified one box that needs to be replaced. So I feel pretty certain that his is kind of aged out here.
Yeah.
And needs to be replaced. They went over and they adjusted Gales to kind of get it in more working order. But again, these people have limited control here because it's not on your property. And so that's where regulators, whether you like big regulation or small regulation or no regulation, they do play a role because they can kind of act as the mediator or the advocate for the consumer and say, hey, before we get any deeper into this situation, can we just resolve it? It's something that was kind of surprising to me, Nick. Initially, AT&T responded quickly to me.
Yeah.
I mean, within hours, they had a crew out there with their electrical tape, putting that thing back together, right? But over the next couple weeks, really a kind of a lack of responsiveness to me about my additional questions. Is this a permanent fix? When can customers expect things to be resolved? What kind of permanent changes are you going to put in place? It wasn't until yesterday when I put a hard deadline of noon that they came through and gave me the additional information. So just imagine how much work that was for us over multiple weeks to do this. If you're a consumer, like, this is my full-time job at least.
Right.
Like, this is all I have to do when I'm at work, essentially, right? This kind of problem solving. But if you are a homeowner, maybe you have a job, maybe you're a retiree, I don't know what it is, but you can't spend that much time trying to go back and forth with a company to try to get something resolved. And I think that's the most frustrating part for these people. It shouldn't take reaching out to us. That's what I always say. It should not take people reaching out to us to get things fixed. I'm always relieved when we can help resolve something.
Right.
And in the grand scheme of things, is this the biggest issue in the world for people? No. But again, if a company is willing to ignore them when they have issues over a busted equipment box in their front yard, what else might they be willing to do?
Yeah.
There's a level of accountability and responsibility here. Just do the right thing. In this case, the company eventually did. And this isn't the first time, by the way, Nick, that we've dealt with this at WCNC with this particular company. A complaint about AT&T in 2021. A woman in Charlotte said, we've had this box in our yard. It's been busted since we moved in, and we tried to resolve it. We had no luck. And at the time, Bill McGinty, our former colleague, was here, and he helped get it resolved quickly. So there's a bit of a history here.
Yeah.
And you just want to give people the benefit of the doubt. But when it starts becoming a repeat issue,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes us getting involved, you know, to me it signals perhaps people should let the FCC know when any company does something like this. If someone feels like their concerns are diminished or ignored, you know, the federal government should be made aware of it. Not because there's going to be a punishment or needs to be a punishment, but just so they can track it to figure out, is this a one-off or is this happening over and over again?
And I can only imagine customers, like, you reach out a couple of times and then you just get exhausted. Like, you know, like you said, life happens. You work, you have other responsibilities, and like, I don't feel like reaching out anymore. Like, I've reached out a few times.
You know, I was actually emailing with a person in Mecklenburg County earlier this week because I'd done a story maybe 3-4 months ago about some property tax issues in Mecklenburg County where the car taxes were sometimes wrong, right? The assessed value of these cars. And I had a few people reach out to me after the story, and this one person did. And I said, here's what you should do. You know, you should reach out to your county commissioner. You have the chance to appeal this. And I followed up with him, and he told me, honestly, I just paid it because I just didn't have the bandwidth to fight it anymore. And I think that's so common with people.
Yeah.
That's why they reach out with us to begin with. I mean, who isn't overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
I know I am all the time.
Right.
And thankfully, I have a job where I can help people, and I have access to those in power who can change things, and I have access to data and data skills that can say this isn't like a one-off here. You know, there's a systemic issue potentially.
Man, well, Nate continues to do the great work that you do. I know you shy away from my compliments, but Nate, thank you for what you're doing. Can we put back up the web? I know we were showing it during Nate's. As Nate was speaking, the web here's a web article there. Again, as Nate mentioned, it is live on our website. And what time does your story air tonight?
Our story airs, I believe, at 6:15 tonight. But you can see several pictures from our visit there, and I don't know if there's the picture of it, like a close-up of the box. James, if you can pull that up, because it really, I think, to your point, look at that. I mean, just,
You mean that beauty right there?
Yeah.
Looks like it belongs in a museum.
You described it, but I was still surprised when I saw it.
That's like a relic, right? But it actually is functioning, and they tell me, thankfully, there's no live power going through there. But there's a reason they put a cover over it to begin with, right? The cover was made to be put over that so those wires wouldn't be exposed.
Right. Nate Morbido, thank you for your time, man. Thank you, as always, for the work that you're doing. Wow, a very, very interesting story, to say the least, man. All right. So we are continuing to keep an eye on the State Department briefing that's supposed to start at any moment now. Of course, as always, as soon as it starts. I thought it was about to start, James.
I saw that camera zooming out. I thought you were nailed the timing perfectly. But.
I saw the camera zooming out. Now I kind of want to stall a little more, but all right. So it looks like they're just adjusting the camera. As soon as that starts, we'll take you there live. We want to take you to now. We showed you a bit of it without sound, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, holding a press conference on Capitol Hill right after meeting with House Speaker Mike Johnson. So let's take you there now in case you missed it from earlier.
The people of America, of Texas, have profoundly lost their colleagues. We stand with the people of Texas and the people of America as the people of America stand with us. We send our condolences to the bereaved families. The President and I believe in a doctrine called peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes the peace. Our resolute action, the resolute decision of President Trump to act with us against those who seek to destroy Israel and threaten the peace of the world has made a remarkable change in the Middle East. There are opportunities for peace that we intend to realize. We're working together on this. We have still to finish the job in Gaza, release all our hostages, eliminate and destroy Hamas's military and governance capabilities, because Gaza must have a different future for our sake, for everyone's sake. And no country will settle for less. We certainly will not. The The coordination between an American president and an Israeli prime minister has been unmatched.
All right, and so that's Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier on Capitol Hill speaking after his meeting with House Speaker Mike Johnson. Right there below, we continue to keep an eye on things as far as the State Department briefing that is set to start in moments. All right, so let's come back home. So election season is beginning here in the Queen City. Candidate filing officially opened up yesterday, bright and early at 8 a.m., and it runs through the 18th at noon, setting the stage for the 2025 municipal elections in Mecklenburg County. So alongside the mayor's seat, all 11 Charlotte City Council seats and 6 school board positions are up for grabs. Richard Devane was there as filing day kicked off, opened up, and spoke with a couple of candidates for a couple of different races, one being the school board. So here are their full interviews. Again, this is WCNC Charlotte's Richard Devane doing this interview.
Namrata Yadav.
And you are running for?
City Council at large.
The question I have to ask you is why?
Because I think Charlotte needs a new voice. I have zero political experience jumping into this because I genuinely believe Charlotte needs new thinking. Charlotte's status quo with the leadership needs to be challenged. Someone with business experience. I've had 20 plus years of corporate experience, and I really feel this is the time we need a stronger public-private relationship between Charlotte and the private sector. And I am all about the community, and my neighbors always come first. So how do we create an inclusive, thriving, and safe community for everybody in Charlotte?
You mentioned the fact that it's, I guess, politics, some would say politics, standard politics. How does an outsider, because it's been done before. We've had a number of city council members who first time they've ever ran, they won. How do you think you can do it, but on an at-large bid? That's a bit much.
I have no idea. I'm learning myself, but I genuinely believe that what's happening right now in Charlotte, it's not working. There is a lot of dysfunction, and I want to be able to come with a saner voice and just a kinder, more professional voice, and be able to ask some tough questions. So I'm just a concerned mom right now. That's really what got me involved.
Awesome. Anything else that you want to add about taking this step out here?
I mean, come on September 9th and vote, because it's going to be really important, the primaries this year. My name is Namrata Yadav. I'm NY for Charlotte.
There you go.
My name is Bill Fountain.
And you're running for?
I'm running for the District 1 school board seat.
The question I ask everyone is why?
The why is, I think it's fairly easy that for the past years, I guess, that CMS has been putting social and political agendas ahead of academic achievement. And I think we need to return to stuff that works. And for instance, like better behavior, stronger character, and really returning back to the basics. Now, the basics I mean by reading, writing, and math.
What do you think of you've mentioned it, what do you think of some of the failings of the board as we speak now?
Well, if you look at what the level of, I guess, competency, right now they're thinking about, I think it's something like 38% of the students are meeting the reading and math requirements for the state. And when you said, well, that's just because that's a level 4 or for level 5. However, if you also look at it, it's about 50% of them are not even proficient. We're sending out children out into the streets or out into our community, and they're not prepared for it. And I remember we saw that Arthur, the commissioner, he was out there was saying that, hey, they found out that 40% of the students that graduated last year had a below a 2.0 grade point average. And he was saying, hey, that these children are not going to be able to get employed, they're not going to be able to get enlisted, or they even go and enrolled into some school. That's horrible for our future.
Tell me a little bit about your background, why you think you're suited for this position.
Well, first thing, I'm a former Air Force Lieutenant Colonel in the Air Force. And I was a Pentagon planner, for defense. Also was in the business world for about 20 years, and I taught school. I taught school within CMS, and I taught school for, like I said, for about 10 years. So I've been involved in that, and I have been speaking out at the school board, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Board system, about some of the things that need to be changed, and also going to Davison, Huntersville, and Cornelius, which is my area up in north part of the state, or the county. Yeah.
So, good luck. I
appreciate it. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
All right, so that was a couple of the candidates, one for city council, one for school board. All right, so let's switch gears. Let's talk about alligator Alcatraz. So detainees there describe conditions at the Everglades facility. Florida still has not released the number of people being detained at what they call, quote, alligator Alcatraz. But for the first time, we're hearing from several men who are being held inside the facility. Let's take a listen in.
Liamsi Izquierdo on the phone describing what it's like inside the so-called alligator Alcatraz. Says he's been at the detention facility out in the Everglades since Friday. No water to bathe, he says. It's been 4 days since he showered. 400 people he believes are inside the facility. Only gets fed once a day, he says, and some of the food had worms. Detention center lights are on 24/7. The mosquitoes, he says, are the size of elephants. Izquierdo's partner, Katia, says he's a permanent resident who was arrested last week. First taken to TGK, then to Miramar, Everglades facility.
Good morning, sir. You speak English?
No. Here is Izquierdo in bond court last Thursday.
We're charged with aggravated assault with deadly weapon and battery.
The police report says it all has to do with a violent dispute with a tow company worker who was trying to repossess a jet ski. Now back to the call. Complains they're not allowed to go outside and the tents are freezing.
No creo que eso sea de humano. Tener a personas en esas condiciones.
Izquierdo's girlfriend says these are not humane conditions.
All right, so that was the latest from, quote, alligator Alcatraz. You hear from detainees. That was a story from NBC6 there in South Florida. I guess let's talk about it. We were talking about it.
Prime Day.
It's Prime Day. Amazon Prime Day. Carlene, so Amazon Prime Day pretty much is when, Amazon, it gives us really good discounts on products being sold.
And not just Amazon. Everyone's jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I've seen different versions of Prime Day. Carlene asked me what did I buy for Prime Day.
What did you buy, Nick?
I bought a set of hand towels.
That's the most adult purchase. I bought a set of hand towels.
I'm trying to just not be impulsive.
Sure.
So
that's good.
I'm $11 set of hand towels was on sale. I was like, can't beat that.
Can't beat that.
So what did you buy, Carlene?
I haven't bought anything yet. I'm putting things in my cart, and I said this morning, and I'm going to say it again to the people of Amazon if you're watching. $1 off is not a deal.
It's not. That's what I'm saying.
$1 off is $1 off. $1 off is not a Prime Day deal. But there are some good deals. But I've seen some that have been like $1 off, $1.50 off. That's not a deal.
That's not a deal because you end up having to pay for that in tax, shipping. Well, I guess Prime Day free shipping for the most part.
Sure, but there's tax and everything. $1 is not enough.
James, you're pretty quiet over there.
Yeah.
I was thinking there's no such thing as a free lunch.
No.
It's the only thing I remember from economics.
Oh, man. So James did not get anything for Prime Day. And look, hand towels, they're supposed to arrive sometime between 5 and 10 today. So
Today?
Yeah, order it today.
Because you need those towels now.
What they said, they guaranteed it sometime between 5 and 10. So, I won't be disappointed if they don't come. I would really like for them to come.
Sure. That's why you have Prime.
That's why I have Prime.
Right.
So, so we want to make sure that while you're shopping, you're scam free. Things don't happen. Mm-hmm. You don't lose your money. Your money goes to where it's supposed to go, and you get the product that you order. So, Got a chance to speak with Juliana O'Rourke with the Better Business Bureau recently. She spoke with Jane Monroe. Wow, it's been a long day. I was about to call her somebody else. Jane Monroe, my partner in crime on the 4 o'clock news, about some scams you should avoid. Let's take a listen in.
We are now talking about what is happening here next week. A little bit of a shopping day, right? So Prime Carlene
Day.
is excited about this.
Prime Day.
I didn't realize Prime Day is coming up next week, and so that is big news here for shoppers, right? It's very exciting.
It's just one of those days. I do look forward to Prime Day. I load up on all my essentials.
Oh, that's good idea. I mean, I definitely take a look because it's July. It starts July 8th. I think it goes to the 11th now.
Yes.
So a time certainly exciting for online shoppers, but you know what that means. It's also an exciting time for fraudulent retailers. So with us right now is Juliana O'Rourke from the Better Business Bureau. Hi, Juliana.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning, a couple days before the July 4th holiday. And those sales, I see them advertised. It's very exciting. What are you seeing as the most common types of these types of scans during July?
Yeah, so July is obviously a big month for a lot of retailers to do their very big sales. We haven't had any reports specifically come in, but we always know that around these big sales, scammers are definitely prevalent. So we want people to be on the lookout for a couple different things. So phishing scams, lookalike websites, and then also misleading ads, especially on social media channels.
All right, so when someone finds what looks to be an amazing deal, what's the first step they should take before hitting that buy button?
Yeah, so if you see a really good deal on social media, if you see something being advertised, first and foremost, if the deal is too good to be true, it's probably because it is. Most of the time you're not going to find a really popular product or, an expensive product that you find on most websites. You're not going to find it for, 50, 60, 70% cheaper on another website. But when you're seeing these ads on social media, there's a few things you want to be looking for. Specifically, are there spelling errors? Are there grammatical errors? Before you click on anything, you can actually hover over the ad to see where that link is going to take you. What does that URL look like? Also, is it a secure URL? Is it an HTTPS? Does it make sense based on the business, right? So depending on the name of the company, is it going to be, WCNC.com, or is it going to be a whole bunch of random letters and numbers? Those are going to be some telltale signs that they're probably not legitimate. Or if you go to the website and you do order something, it may not be as great as what you're hoping it will be if you do end up actually getting a product.
All right. Yeah, I mean, phishing scams also increase. That's a risk here as well. What are some of the examples that people need to look out for, maybe suspicious messages out there?
Yeah, so anytime you get an unsolicited text message, email, you kind of want to be really careful with those. So you want to make sure if there's a link, don't click on it, or again, hover over it to see where it's actually taking you. If you know these big sales are coming up and there's specific things like Carlene mentioned, she puts a lot of her essentials in her cart on Amazon. You're kind of on the lookout for these products, I would say, a lot of the time just to see if they ever do go on sale or if anything is going on. And so those are things you kind of want to pay attention to as well if you're getting emails or text messages. And then the same thing when you get emails, who's the sender? Does the email address make sense for the company that it's coming from? Are there spelling errors? Is there grammatical things that you are, if you're reading a sentence, it doesn't quite make sense? Again, random links, those are things you kind of want to pay attention to.
I mean, similar to that line, though, is social media. How does that play into everything?
Yeah, so a lot of companies advertise on social media. A lot of companies are legitimate that advertise on there, but unfortunately we know scammers thrive in social media as well. Lots of people spend a lot of time on social media, and so anytime you see an ad on there, you kind of want to be cautious just because you're not entirely sure where it's coming from. So again, hover over it before you do any clicking. And then also, if you see some really great deal, you should also be able to just go out to that company's website and find that same deal, or if you do a search on the internet. So just, you don't always have to go directly from the ad that you're seeing. Oftentimes you can go directly to the website and experience the same type of promotion.
I mean, you talk about when something's too good to be true. I mean, talk to you about trusting your gut. How important is that in practice?
Yeah, I think that's really important for most people. Like I said, if you see a product and you're like, wow, that's on mega sale and it's, usually $100 more, something crazy, I would think your gut instinct would be, this is probably not right. I know I want it to be true, but it probably isn't. Yeah. So just be careful.
All right. And paying with a credit card, you got to do that anyway online.
Yeah, you always want to pay with a credit card. Don't ever use a debit card because that functions a little bit more like cash. But also, no peer-to-peer payments if they ask for Venmo or Zelle or something along those lines. Also, gift cards can be red flags if they're like you can only pay with a gift card. So always pay with your credit card. You have a little bit more protection that you can file fraudulent claims on. So yeah, we always recommend credit card over everything else.
And that definitely helps if you already bought the item and you feel like, oh, I got scammed, right?
Yeah.
Good for credit card purchases.
Yeah. All right, some really good advice from Juliana when it comes to Prime Day. Carlene's going to continue to shame me for my hand towels. She did.
Hand towels are hand towels. Those are essentials. I'm glad you got a deal on them. And you're going to get them today. So you can wash your hands
today.
Some dry hands over here. Some, it's nothing like some fresh
new
towel.
Nice.
I might, okay. Let's totally shift gears. Let's talk about we brought you some of the interviews from folks that are filing for city council, also school board in Mecklenburg County. And just want to reiterate, it's technically officially election season is underway. Filing opened up yesterday. But it's not just for candidates. The county is working on a particular thing, and why I'm saying thing, because this is going to lead to my first question for Julie Kay, who's here in studio, revolving around transit on the November ballot. That thing, because the name has been botched a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
What is the actual name of the thing?
Now I'm nervous to answer. So what we've been calling the 1 cent sales tax for transit projects that will most likely be on your November ballot.
Okay.
And we'll get to what needs to happen before that happens. Great question, because that's one of the emails we've gotten over and over again. Is what is it? So it's 1 cent to every dollar. So people are asking, is it 1 percentage point or is it 1 cent? Technically both. So it would raise the sales tax to 8.25 from 7.25, so 1 percentage point, but really it's 1 cent to every dollar, 1 percentage point.
Yeah, and I know I was kind of being a little tongue-in-cheek with the name, but that's just to lead up to the question, because there are questions about what this is.
What is it? What does it mean for me?
Right.
How much money am I actually going to be seeing go away if this passes? So.
And you got a chance to speak with Mayor Pro Tem Dante Anderson, right? How did that conversation go?
It was really informative, because I think some of the questions that we have are the same questions that the viewers have about how does this impact me. We all, for the most part, live in Mecklenburg County too. And so some of those questions, that was a big one. What happens now? Because just because the PAVE Act or the legislation allowing this to go on the ballot passed at the last second, mind you, does not mean that it automatically ends up on the ballot. I did also check in with County Commissioner Chair Mark Jarrell. He says they do plan to talk about it and vote on it on their August 6th meeting when they're back. That will then send it to the Board of Elections, which will end up on your ballot. But as you mentioned, filing opened yesterday for candidates, so we are already in election season. For those of you who are tired of this, welcome back. There's really no break, but yeah, that ball is rolling. It's not quite there yet. But Dante was very informative about just some of the misconceptions that she's heard from her constituents as well. Of course, some of the things we've talked about a lot, Matthews, still not happy. For those of you who don't live in Matthews, just kind of an overview of the concerns there is that this transit plan, and again, it's not necessarily finalized. This is going to be something that changes and grows over the course of however many years after this, assuming it's approved. But none of the plans right now have a light rail going to all the way to Matthews. The Silver Line in the plans that are proposed. Big talker. Would stop at Bojangles Coliseum. That's actually where I met Dante today to talk about this, which would still, people are saying that's very helpful for economic impact. You want people to get to the event venues. Right. But there isn't a plan to get the light rail all the way to Matthews, and Matthews leaders, Mayor John Higdon, says that's not the same economic impact to, say, have a bus system. Right. So we talked a little bit about that, and those concerns we brought up over and over again. Actually, Mayor Higdon was filing for re-election yesterday, and WCNC got a chance to speak with him then. He said, I've been pushing for this for forever. The deal's kind of done. It sounds like, it's up to voters now, of course, but I'm tired of being kind of the Lone Ranger, and so my campaign is going to focus on other things that are more in our control. But Dante made a good point of saying, the breakdown of this funding isn't just for light rail, it's not just for buses. A big chunk of this is roads. The light rail and the bus expansion, that would go to this overall creation of the transit authority. That's why those plans would be kind of growing and changing, because that's more of a long-term project. That authority would have control over that. This 40% of funding going straight to roads, those would go straight to the municipalities. So Matthews, for example, she said in the first year would get $5 million to whatever they want to do to roads, sidewalks, bus stops, that kind of thing. And $5 million could go a decent way. It's not all the way.
Right.
But it will give some room to these municipalities, these towns, to make decisions of their own, even if they're not happy with the transit plan.
James, you got anything?
James has some thoughts.
I know James is our. I don't want to leave him out of this conversation.
Yeah, I do. And I think the thing that really hits home on the point you're talking about, Julie, is I feel like only a week or so ago did they start calling it the PAVE Act, right? Because it has so many names, and I like to think I'm fairly engrossed in what's happening, and I was like, when did we start calling it the PAVE Act?
We were all confused. I think we were all confused about that too, right? Yeah.
And that is just the name of the bill, but that bill had multiple iterations of it, of course, which is why we're like, oh. And PAVE, of course, kind of alludes more towards roads, and so that has been a bigger part of the discussion. There was, I'm sure James could even break this down more, but some discussion over the percentages of how much to what. There were certain stipulations through the General Assembly.
Now we're looking at James like
putting me on the spot.
Go ahead.
I mean, I know you guys were talking about it today in the newsroom, and you're exactly right. There's a stipulation, and I think this is what was working its way through. How much of the pot, however big the pot is going to be, can be broken down for rails versus bus. And Charlotte and the region, Julie can confirm this for me, right? We can't put this even on the ballot until the state approved it, which is what they most recently did.
Yes, absolutely. And those stipulations, I think, are what kind of held it up, which is why for a second there we were like, we're not even sure if this is going to pass.
Right.
It was a very last-minute decision. I think it was the last day or two that this passed through the legislature. So that was kind of a, dare I say, a roadblock to this conversation. And that's also why we're having this conversation now, because this has been a concept for a long time, and it only became real very quickly. That's why we were like, oh, PAVE Act. It happened very suddenly, and now we're here where we have to get this language approved and done by a certain time for it to even get on the ballot. So that's why we keep saying most likely could, but they still have to finish those hurdles.
Yeah, still got some steps to go. Julie K, thank you for your time here in studio. Oh, before I let you leave, I always ask this question. What time can folks check out your story?
5:30.
5:30, there it is. And we have information, a lot of information regarding this legislation, filing day, everything that's on the ballot right now on our website. Julie, thank you for your time again. We want to go to Washington, D.C., because we've been keeping an eye on this. State Department briefing is underway. There is Tammy Bruce, State Department spokesperson. Let's take a listen in.
Asia, as well as our commitment to building on our comprehensive partnership with Malaysia. And with all of that, I will take your questions here. Andrea Mitchell.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Well, in your own voice, can you explain how it could happen that some imposter tried to get access via a fake, signal ID of the Secretary of State, reaching out to officials, foreign officials, as well as domestic officials? And how could it happen? And can you explain, did they get in, and did they get any access?
Well, there's a few things I can say to you here. The State Department, of course, is aware of this incident and is currently monitoring and addressing the matter. The department takes seriously its responsibility to safeguard its information and continuously takes steps to improve the department's cybersecurity posture to prevent future incidents. For security reasons, we do not have any further details to provide at this time. The State Department, of course, when we think about the reports that have occurred, And the details that we would like to provide become problematic, obviously, when it comes to investigations and the nature of the actions that we're taking. So that's what I have for you right now.
Well, can you say anything, can you tell the American people that there was no damage, no violation of security?
Yeah, I will not, whether that's the case or not, go into any of the details. This, of course, is the State Department. It's the United States government. We live in a technological age that we are well enmeshed in, and I'll leave it at that. But when there is something to report, everyone here will hear it first.
Can you say whether it was discovered by state or by another government agency or by an outside
I cannot go into any
provider?
details regarding discovery or the actions that have been or are being taken or will be taken. But it will be something that you will hear. All right. Yes, Humaira, Reuters.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you. What can you tell us about Gaza ceasefire talks? Prime Minister Netanyahu is here. He's going to meet with President Trump again tonight. Is it close? What are the remaining sticking points?
So many questions. I mean, that's 7 questions so far.
No, it's only 2, actually.
Yes, all right.
You can handle it.
I think I can. I think I can. It's an important question, obviously. This is something that the President and this administration has been focused on, as has the Secretary from day one. I can tell you that I think as it has been clear, the President has been optimistic from the start, and his optimism holds. He is very hopeful for progress. There was some commentary made, of course, at the cabinet meeting, which I do want to share with you. The Witkoff had also made some remarks. Is this in the book or in the paper here when it comes to the commentary? I think we're going to get that. You might see one of my specials coming up here in a moment. Because I want to get you specifically what, of course, the special envoy has said as well. Let's get that. That was what was fun, with a lot of people here at the State Department taking furious notes as the commentaries went around the table for the cabinet meeting. But we have from both the special envoy and the president. God, on so many issues. But yes, let's get this. On the Netanyahu meeting, there will be another meeting this evening with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And the President has noted, of course, Gaza is a tragedy, and everyone wants to get it solved. Ambassador Steve Witkoff says we're in proximity talks now. We had 4 issues, and now we're down to 1 after 2 days of proximity talks. So we're hopeful by the end of this week that we'll have an agreement that brings us to a 60-day ceasefire. 10 live hostages will be released. 9 deceased will be released. We're meeting with all the hostage families to let them know, and we think this will lead to a lasting peace in Gaza. So I think that's what we have with the state.
Do you know much about the sticking points? Because Palestinian sources had said on Monday that there's been progress has been held up by Israel's limits on allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza. And in the text it says the aid will be delivered by United Nations, Red Crescent, and other agreed channels. Does the U.S. want and Israel want for GHF to be one of these channels?
Well, we're focused on still getting a ceasefire. We're still at the talks of that. It has not been signed. It's not been established. We believe it will be. We had a ceasefire once before. That was broken early on in this dynamic. On October 7th, there was a ceasefire. That was also broken by the same monsters who continue to make statements, which I would suggest anything you hear or receive from Hamas, that terrorist group that is responsible for this suffering and the carnage for generations, you should look at with a side eye, with suspicion. And many of the reports you hear are from that perspective, still certainly detached from what's best for humanity and from the reality of the situation. So we're focused on, the President is focused on the ceasefire itself. Nothing is given until it's done. And that is what we're looking at. I think that for those who are thinking about more aid, that's fabulous. Of course, the State Department and certainly Secretary Rubio and the President have made comments throughout this process about the importance of aid, about the importance of assisting the people who are the first victims of Hamas, which are the people of Gaza. And we've stayed true to that principle, and we remain committed to it. So however many are going to participate in the rebuilding and in an end to the suffering, those it's great news, but it has to be new ideas that can actually succeed, and we're on our way, of course, to accomplishing that. All right. Yes, Jillian.
What was the Secretary's reaction to finding out that he was being impersonated and represented to allies and adversaries through this AI mechanism?
We're not at a point here where I will discuss or portray what actions are being taken or his reaction. The Secretary, great news is, of course, he is very transparent, quite transparent, and he's direct with everyone. I think that any description of his reaction, of course, belongs to him, and I would suspect that at some point we'll have that for you.
There was this press conference today, the Secretary of Defense and Agriculture were talking about the threat that the Chinese government poses here in the United States with the strategic acquisition of farmland that's near military bases. What is the State Department prepared to do to hedge against those kinds of intrusions?
Well, it's an interagency kind of decision and discussions that go on, also negotiations, the nature of a full whole of government dynamic. When you're dealing with agriculture, you're dealing with Homeland Security, certainly, and the equities that the State Department might hold. I won't discuss what our actions would be or what the specifics would be. I'm sorry, I have a lot of not answers for you today at some point, but I would say that as soon as we have some kind of action, we'll let you know, but it's not something I can remark on today.
Can you talk at all about if the sort of like writ large, if the department sees this as an ongoing threat as well?
Well, that would require me to speculate or talk about an opinion framework, which I can't do, certainly at this point. But we'll have something for you soon. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. GHF had said that it was undergoing an independent audit as a condition of getting U.S. government funding. Has it, in that it would turn over that audit to state in July? Has it turned over that audit, and will the State Department make that public?
Well, I can tell you that for any aid, of course, there are some requirements. In this case, there's ongoing benchmarks, et cetera. So this is something that we follow and will expect certain details, to say the least. At this point, what I can tell you is that we're looking at their track record now, which is now at 66 million meals to date at 3 distribution centers, which they hope, of course, to expand. And whatever our requirements are regarding aid, this aid and any other aid, I won't discuss here at this podium, but it certainly is a standard that is worthwhile and matters based on, as you know, we've done a huge revamp of our foreign aid framework, and it's based on making sure that what happens meets our standards, our vision for what's best for America, and our values. And at this point, it's clear that we believe GHF has the potential for that, and we're moving forward. So as soon as there's more details, we'll get that to you.
On that topic, does the State Department disagree with the counts of international bodies and aid groups that hundreds of Palestinians have been killed, have been shot trying to receive the aid? And if not, what is the State Department assessment, or what is Israel saying about how many, if any, Palestinians have been killed?
Well, we know Israel has some investigations ongoing regarding what has transpired in a war zone they did not want, a war zone they did not expect, a war zone created exclusively by Hamas, which now is thinking about a ceasefire and looking at it, which is nice. But this could end in a moment, as we all know, by releasing all of the hostages and by putting down their arms. They've chosen not to do that. In the meantime, in a war zone, and this is what the drama has been and why humanitarian aid has been so difficult, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing. People have weapons. Terrorists have weapons. They shoot people. They're holding hostages. They're maniacs. And we have endeavored to push through that to get aid to the people of Gaza without it being stolen by Hamas, which has used it, which has weaponized it essentially, to enrich themselves, to purchase more weapons, to build more weapons, and to terrorize local residents. They're not stealing it because they care about the lifestyle or the quality of life of the people in Gaza. If they did that, they wouldn't be a terrorist group and they wouldn't have attacked and murdered 1,200 Israelis on October 7th. So it's about getting the aid where it belongs to the people who need it without putting it into the coffers effectively of the terrorist group causing all this death and destruction. Yes, Tom?
On the future of Gaza, I mean, we know you've been very clear, says the President and the Secretary, that Hamas can't be a part of that.
Correct.
So, but what is the administration's vision for the future governance of Gaza?
Well, the President has made clear, Secretary has discussed as well, the fact that Hamas cannot be a part of Gaza, of any power framework. It cannot exist, is the word that the Secretary used. This, however, as the President has also stated, the future of Gaza, it should be in the hands of the Gazan people and in that region. So this is not just our vision or a dictation of what will happen. This is about the countries, our partners in the region, who have been actively working to implement the new ideas that the President has asked for. So I won't speculate on what that will look like, but if this moves as we hope it would, which is always quickly under President Trump's direction, is that we'll see that sooner than later. And one thing I can tell you is that it will not involve Hamas.
But just to follow up on that, I mean, that suggests that the US doesn't have a sort of clear vision for what the best future governance is.
Well, no, it suggests that there's some things that I won't exactly tell you today.
But so there is a vision, but you're not setting out what it is.
Clearly, we have multiple nations dealing with an issue that has gone on for generations, where people have said that they want it to end, they want it to be solved. The results have been not good, ending up in Hamas in this kind of dystopian dynamic. And then President Trump comes back and says, I want new ideas. This can't continue. Working with all those nations in the region, hand in hand, to come up with a new idea. What that new idea will be, I can't describe, but they're not playing tiddlywinks. They're actually making, having a vision for the future of how this constructively could work.
Just to clarify, does
Yes.
that include the possible, as the administration terms it, relocation of Palestinians from Gaza?
I won't discuss the details.
Because when the President was asked about this in the White House last night, his first reaction was to defer to the Israeli Prime Minister about that very question. I mean, he didn't answer it.
Yeah, I think that when I refer people to other agencies or to other people, it's either because it's more appropriate or because it's something that is not correct for me to speak about, or I don't have the details. When speaking about another nation's approach with something, it's appropriate to refer to that friend who's sitting there with you. President Trump has not just the desire to ask for new ideas, he asks for them because he gets them. He knows new ideas are possible. His life is a new idea. The nature of what he's accomplished politically is a new idea. He knows that if you put your mind to it and you need to accomplish something very specifically, you must determine what that will be, as opposed to being carried along by a system or a machine or the wind. So when he lives his life that way and he knows that it works, it's not always easy, but that sometimes it's the only way, if not most of the time, if you want real success and real progress, is to have the new ideas. And that's what we're waiting for, and it will not look like what's happened before.
No, that
yes,
isn't
the
a
other
new
Tom.
idea.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. Just going back to Gaza, can you tell us what that one remaining issue is that Special Envoy Witkoff described or referenced earlier?
No, but I'm sure we'll find out.
And then another sort of simple question.
Of course.
By the end of the week, does that mean By Friday, by Saturday, or by Sunday?
I think generally it could be the collection of the days at the end of the week. I can't. I'm not going to specify because we know how things can happen. The president is leaving on a trip today that originally he was going to be leaving on a couple days earlier. The world happens. These are men and women who are at the forefront of deliberate change, and they're determined to be managing it. So these are the people who understand, and that's a very specific thing to say, even though it was kind of end of the week. I would say, to clarify a little bit more, I would say probably the end of the week. Yes.
Thank you, Abbott. Two separate topics, most obviously. But before that, just to clarify.
But you meant the president leaving today or the
secretary? No, it's the secretary. Obviously, the secretary. Did I say the president? Well, I'm Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Yes, both men are on my mind.
On Ukraine, I would appreciate if you help us understand whether the president's latest assessment of Putin will lead to any real policy change when it comes to arms shipment issue. Are we back to pre-July level, or is this administration now committed to deliver on all the previously made commitments?
Well, I mentioned in our last briefing when there was some concern and hubbub about arms shipments stopping from the United States to Ukraine. And my warning then was, wait a minute, that this is one situation, that you should not extrapolate it as a new policy or position, that we have been and remain Ukraine's biggest supporters. We care about those people. We care about making sure that they have what they need. The president has been very vocal about the wholesale slaughter that has been going on and how it has to stop, how there has to be a ceasefire, and how it has to be between the two parties. Within that, I noted that, of course, wait. And here we do now have, besides a phone alarm, we have, of course, the resumption of weapons shipments to Ukraine. The president has been vocal about this. Without the details of exactly what, President feels obviously.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. Vanessa Rufus taking over for Nick Sturdivant here in the Live Impact News studio. Just wanted to let you know what you're checking out in this 3-box right now. In full, we have State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce giving a briefing on the latest topics of the day. You're also seeing in the top right corner a live picture from I-77 near Huntersville, where we are unfortunately dealing with some slowdowns and some blockages due to a crash here. This is in the southbound direction near mile marker 21. As you can see, 2 of the right lanes are blocked. Looks like we do have some movement on the 2 remaining left lanes. So slow go, but you will be able to get through. I'd plan accordingly in the sense of plan extra time, or if you have an easy workaround that gets you to your destination, then I would certainly take that. And then, of course, you're also seeing live look at the big board. Dow Jones down close to 145 points on the day. Of course, tariff-related news driving the markets. We can see, based on President Trump's announcement that there would be no exceptions to his August 1st tariff start date, that we're seeing investors maybe a little bit weary or wary, maybe both. But regardless, we'll be checking in as we get closer to the closing bell on how stocks are doing. Let's listen back in to Tammy Bruce.
What makes the secretary believe that there's a happy ending there?
Well, that's a good question, and we'll have some of that for you, but it was important enough, of course, for him to mention. And we're excited about the multitude of arrangements and ceasefires and changes that we've been able to be involved in. The Secretary noted that for a reason, and when we have some more details for you, I'll get it to you. All right. Yes, sir, in the back there.
Can I ask a question on Iran? The President mentioned yesterday that the Iranians have requested a meeting. Your Iranian counterpart today countered that and said there has been no request on the Iranian side. Where does this, is there a misunderstanding here, and are you still communicating via the Omanis, or are there other countries involved here?
Well, I would say that I don't have a counterpart in Iran. I'll say that right now. But I would remind you that our commitment to all of these issues remains. The president has been very public in saying that he wants Iran to return to the normal collection of nations. Our commitment has been steadfast through all of these conflicts. And now is a time for Iran to take advantage of that. But we've, of course, seen them do certain things that have not been helpful, like withdrawing from the IAEA, et cetera. But President Trump is determined to have success there for the Iranian people and for the world and for the region. So I don't have details for you now about what may or could happen, but I do know that the President remains committed to a world at peace and to doing everything he can to make that possible. Yes, and yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Has any meetings with Iran been scheduled yet, or are you still discussing to set up a meeting with Iranian in somewhere in Middle East or in Europe?
You're asking about the Kurds?
No, I'm asking about this. This will be my second question, actually. My question is follow-up for my colleagues from BBC. Has any meeting scheduled with Iranian yet, or you are still?
I can't speak to that at this point.
And
But
second question on
yes.
the Kurds, yeah. Could you share the State Department's comments regarding the recent meetings between the Kurdish-led delegation with the Syrian interim government in Damascus, and how does the department view Damascus' apparent lack of response to the Kurdish delegation's request to continue their dialogue?
That's good. That's a good question, but we have to take it back. I know there can be something. There's a lot of course, action and change, courtesy of Ambassador Barak, our ambassador to Turkey, who's leading the reformation, if you will, and the assistance to Syria. The Kurdish position there, of course, is of interest to many, and so we'll get that back to you.
Lastly, about how do you see the recent dispute between KRG and Baghdad over the budget and oil issue?
Is this about the salary payment still?
Exactly.
Yes, well, as we know, that's been a long time issue. I appreciate you staying on it, many others staying on it as well. I can reiterate for those who are unaware of the situation, which, again, the Middle East changed a couple of weekends ago, right? It changed dramatically. But I can tell you that we continue to urge Baghdad, in this case, and Erbil to resolve their issues through constructive dialogue. That has not changed. We still want that. Resolving this salaries issue sends a signal that Iraq is creating an environment in which U.S. companies would want to invest. That, I think, is even more heightened now than ever before with the potential. Successful resolution would also send a positive signal on broader cooperation for the benefit of all Iraqis, such as the reopening of the Iraq-Turkey pipeline and additional energy exploration, including with U.S. companies. I know that President Trump's vision of a peaceful world is one where everything is possible. Iraq fits into that, obviously, as do the Kurdish people. Nothing is impossible, and we've got the leadership that I think can take us there. Next to
me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As we know, after October 7, 2003, always Prime Minister Netanyahu talking about the new Middle East. And President Trump is very concerned about the stability and peace. Can you update us, now Prime Minister Netanyahu here in town, do you continue to support Israel for peace and stability in the Middle East and fight terrorism and proxies in the region?
I think it's pretty obvious with the relationship between President Trump and the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, as well as the Secretary of State and his comments and his relationship as well. Our involvement in the issue of defense and supporting Israel's defense of itself. It's clear that now opportunities have opened up as terrorist death squads of the region, having been supported by Iran, remain on their heels. And it's a very exciting time. It's a time where people who perhaps felt that this was the only normal or the new normal are realizing, as people around the world are, that things can change for the better. This kind of suffering is not perpetual. It can end. And that is what I know President Trump is focused on, and why we have the friends that we have and the actions that we take, because a safer world for the United States, considering all that is asked of us, which we respond to with, I think, incredible generosity. It is our nature as a nation made up of people who wanted freedom and liberty, is that a peaceful world is the best thing for the United States and every other country. And that is our goal, and we search for that and work for that with our partners throughout the world. All right, and yes, in the yellow.
Yes, thank you, Tammy. Ambassador Barak was in Lebanon, and he received the response, the Lebanese response on his proposal regarding the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel. What do we expect after this? And publicly, he was positive regarding the response.
Yes.
Can you walk us through what happened? What?
Well, Special Envoy Tom Barak, also again the ambassador to Turkey, is a remarkable individual. He's got an assignment that is difficult. He, of course, he visited Beirut. He is not a man who pretends. And so you're seeing a public explanation or description of his attitude about what's happening. You can believe in that. He has said that he was unbelievably satisfied, as one example, with the Lebanese government's response to calls to disarm Hezbollah. Now, there is a transparency, I think, that President Trump has set for everyone that moves with him, that has aligned with him. And that's because the American people deserve transparency, that we, for too long, have not had it. And so, yes, while I won't characterize private diplomatic conversations that any of our leaders have, the fact of the matter is you can listen to their own words, you'll see and hear the honesty, and you'll be able to make your conclusions from that. Yes. Yes, sir, with the beard.
Thank you. We heard Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that U.S. and Israel are getting closer to finding countries who will take in Palestinians. Can you tell us who are these countries? Are they in the Middle East or outside of the Middle East?
Well, we know that this has been through conversations and discussions, a part of the ideas that have been discussed or, I suppose, contemplated. There's a realization that, as the President has noted, as the situation became quite obvious, that was not an environment, the Gaza Strip, where one can live peacefully or safely. And in order to rebuild and to remake, people have to be safe. Where we go with those conversations, I won't discuss the end result, but we are at a point. What is this, Tuesday? We're dealing with, after everything we've experienced, think about it, in just 5 to 6 months, what has changed already? The Secretary noted that a bit in his remarks at the Cabinet meeting. It's been an astounding shift, and to the future itself, not in a moment of a singular ceasefire, but changes in attitudes and what we expect. So I would say that there's a belief in general that things can change, that the people themselves are what's being considered first and foremost, and it's the regional partners, the nations in that region, who also have an overwhelming interest in the destruction and the carnage ending. And so we'll have to wait and see who is going to participate in how we make this a better future for the people of the Gaza Strip. All right, and yes, sir, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to...
Tell me your name, by the way. You're in for someone?
Yeah, I'm James Laporta from CBS News.
Great, hi there. Hi, James.
Thank you for having me. I wanted to take us back to Russia-Ukraine for a minute and something the President said. And I'll give you the quote. Quote, "We get a lot of BS thrown at us by Putin. If you want to know the truth, he's very nice to us all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless." How is the President going to negotiate a peace deal when everything that Putin says is meaningless? And to be fair, this is something that people have told the President for a while now, that what Putin largely says is meaningless. Even President Zelensky has said that, and the President has largely dismissed those concerns until recently.
I would urge you to be cautious about presuming the nature of the choice that the President makes, what informs his actions. Don't project onto him that he's dismissed concerns or accepted them. I've not been involved in high-stakes peace negotiations between nations, one of which is a nuclear-powered nation with nuclear weapons. Many of these issues are dealing with nations that could obliterate people in a flash. So I'm not going to presume, and none of us should, the nature of the choices that President Trump specifically makes in his determination to save people's lives and to end the absurdity of what has happened in some of these situations. He tries. He doesn't give up. He talks with people. He knows he can persuade people. He knows Vladimir Putin. There's an effort, and he was committed and remains committed to diplomacy first. But he must know that when there's a limit to that, and he believes, as I think we all should, that people, as they're portrayed in the media, can be one thing, but also that over time people do change for the worse or for the better. And President Trump is going to make a decision based on the private conversations he's had, the people that he knows, the other people involved in the negotiations, the advice he receives, the guidance from his cabinet, but also his own judgment, which has been remarkable, and his transparency. So you hear his assessment.
Right.
When it comes to when you make a deal with someone or something is arranged, and the Secretary has noted this also, is that you don't make a deal with someone because of trust. You make a deal with someone based on what they do and what they don't do, ultimately in the fashion of that deal. So otherwise, with people who cause death and destruction around the world, there would never be any arrangements because there are many people you can't trust. But it's about setting a stage where people must comply with a certain dynamic or there's a price to pay. You don't need to be able to trust someone to do that. You need to be able to have an environment that someone only, frankly, like Donald Trump and the United States can set to put certain people in a line that is best for the world and their own countries.
In February,
One more.
in February,
One more.
President Trump
One
said
second,
he would
sir.
keep his
Please,
word.
in the back, stop, and we'll get one more, and then I'll move to you. Yes. Go. One more, sir. Sir, James, one more for you.
Well, in February, the president did say, I think he'll keep his word. I've known him for a long time. I think he will. I don't believe he's going to violate his word. He said, so isn't that based on trust?
Well, it is. He says that, he tells you what he's thinking, and then the whole point of negotiations and dealing with this kind of thing is based on time and actions that pass. And it's not a static decision. You don't decide that, and then that's the belief or the choice that lasts if something else occurs, or you're seeing some other behavior. We don't do that in any relationship. Right? We have expectations, and then you watch and you engage, and that's the point of the engagements and the negotiations. What the president has seen, I won't comment on. I'm not going to project what the nature of how he's making his decisions. What I do know is that he gets what he wants. He's an open-minded man, but he's not naive. He's principled and clear in what he wants to achieve. That's what we're seeing. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, I will move to the back. Sir in the glasses, and not you in the blue shirt, in the tie, and then back to you after this.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, Tammy.
Yes.
It's on the quad meeting, actually. I was trying.
Great. Okay, that was fun. I enjoyed the quad meeting. Yes.
And last week I was trying to do this. So I have so many, I'll put everything together for you to be impactful.
Oh, well, thank you.
At the recent quad meeting, Indian Foreign Minister Joy Shankar said India has every right to defend itself against terrorism and expect Quad partners to understand that. Given the situation that India shares the longest border with Bangladesh, given the situation last week, ammunition linked to the last year violent anti-government movement in Bangladesh was found in the baggage of UNIS interim government advisor Asif Mahmood at Dhaka International Airport, and under the UNIS-led interim government, last week, Sri Sri Durga Mandir, Hindu Mandir, was demolished by government bulldozer. Hindu barber was taken.
All right. Now
last one.
We try to avoid soliloquies or the little history lessons. I understand it's complicated, detailed, dynamic, involving India and Bangladesh. We understand that. There is, and I would send you to state.gov. I'm not being trite here in this suggestion. There are two statements regarding the Quad meeting, one from Secretary Rubio and a joint statement from all the partners that is quite extensive. And that is what we're willing to share about what happened in those meetings. So those are the purpose of the readouts. I will certainly not characterize not only the Secretary's position about the United States, I'm not certainly going to characterize India's or any other nation's position or statements in what is a diplomatic meeting, but I would suggest you see those that joint statement, and I think we'll be in good shape. Now, behind you in the blue shirt.
Thank you, spokesperson Tammy Bruce. After President Donald Trump elected as the 47th president, in less than 6 months, we saw two major wars between India and Pakistan and Iran and Israel, and President Trump mediated both. Pakistan first nominated him for Nobel Peace Prize, and now Israel. How you see this? And second, ma'am, you have been asked 2 times before, what is
He's counting.
Yes,
okay, keep going.
In Pakistan, when there were elections here in the United States, there was much enthusiasm. A former Prime Minister Imran Khan is currently in jail. What is your official take on it? Do you see it as an internal matter of Pakistan? What's the take of this administration on Imran Khan's imprisonment in Pakistan?
Well, for the administration's opinion regarding Mr. Khan's situation, I would ask you to check with the White House and my colleague Caroline Leavitt on the issue of the fact that President Trump has been nominated now twice, certainly by the latest by Prime Minister Netanyahu regarding our work for peace regarding Iran and Israel. We'll see. I think the President has made it clear that he doesn't expect ever to win something of that sort, and yet the issue for him, the prize, is his success. The prize is the end result, and humanity will be the deciders and the judgment of the nature of what he has contributed with his life. I think that, frankly, in my opinion, transcends the Nobel Peace Prize, but he deserves every prize. He deserves this one for the Abraham Accords. He deserved it. There are many things he deserves, and I don't know in this world whether he would get them, but what he has received is the biggest prize of all, which is the presidency of the United States, brought to him by the freest people in the world in an election, returning him to this office after a remarkably shocking and obscene attacks on himself and his family for years. He did not give up. The American people did not give up on him. He is now not giving up on the world, and the people of the world are going to decide and make a determination of the greatness of Donald Trump. And it's going to be unavoidable. And I appreciate your questions. Yes, sir. In the glasses. Yes.
Thank you so much. After the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, Pakistani government and army chief appreciated the efforts of President Trump and nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. But on the other hand, Indian Prime Minister Modi and his cabinet members continuously saying that President Trump has no role in the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Even Jay Shankar, when he met Secretary Rubio last week, after that meeting, he told media that President Trump has nothing to do with the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Sure. So what are your thoughts on these lies and rogue behavior of Modi?
I think so many comments speak for themselves. That's one of the good news aspects of our modern world, is people can see what's really occurring. You're not reliant on a comment to know what has really happened. The world is playing out in front of us in real time, on big screens and small screens. Everyone will have an opinion. That's an opinion. Some opinions are wrong. Mine rarely are, but other people's opinions can be wrong. But that's what we get to do, is an analyze and judgment. And the fact is that we understand in front of us every day the clarity of what's transpiring in our world. We're the first generation of a couple generations here. So many of you are much younger than I am. Where my generation, perhaps I would say, growing up with a big TV that had the turn dial, and I was the remote control. It was, Tammy, go change the channel. And you change it, you got 4 channels, and the speed, the exponential speed of change of technology, that now I would watch television on my phone that is in my hand, is natural for so many, but it reminds many of us of how quickly things will change, how much information we can get, and the seriousness of making up our own minds when it comes to the things that the world puts upon us. Donald Trump is here to help make that easier and to help use this to make things clear. Secretary Marco Rubio is in the same position. The Vice President of the United States also involved in the negotiations with Pakistan and India. J.D. Vance, same dynamic, fresh views, new ideas, understanding the world as it sits, and making sure that it's better when they leave, and they will be recognized for that. That's it for today, you guys. I will be here all week, and I will see you on Thursday. We will get, with many things up in the air, we will keep an eye on state.gov and releases that I put out. Also, the President's Truth Social, the Secretary of State's X account. Andrea, what is your X account? Got an X account. Do you keep in touch with Andrea Mitchell? What's your X account? She's not going to say it. All right, you can look her up. And what am I at? State DEPT Spox, SPOX. Stay in touch. Watch everything. Make up your own mind. And I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you, everyone.
All right, so folks, you just heard the State Department briefing here with spokesperson Tammy Bruce answering various questions of the day. We wanted to turn to this cabinet meeting. We had President Trump meeting with cabinet members today. We had talked about, earlier in this hour, the fact that the stock market was reacting to some tariff news. That news was announced in this meeting. The president also mentioned the fact that he does plan to meet again today with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which we brought that meeting from last night to you here on Live Impact News Evening Edition. So with that, let's turn to the cabinet meeting today to see what President Trump's remarks are, not only the tariff front, Iran, and also the meeting with Israel's prime minister, but other topics of the day. Let's listen in.
So you want to move down? We have some room over here. If you want. Leave the cameras there. But if you want, there's a lot of room over here. See an engine move out to the end if you way out to the left. Are you able to get them all in the room? Are they in?
Yes, they're in.
Are you okay? Thank you very much. We've had a tremendous 6 months, and we've had a tremendous 2 weeks, which now is, I guess, 3 weeks. And we have a tremendous group of people here that have done a great, unified, beautiful job. I want in particular, because of what she's gone through this last few days, done an incredible job. As you know, Christy, I'm going to ask you to say a few words about Texas. The first person there was the first person I saw on television was you, actually. And you've worked great with the governor, who's terrific. And you might want to tell a little bit about the trials and tribulations, but we appreciate the job that you and everybody have done. You had people there as fast as anybody's ever seen. So really appreciate it. We all do, and maybe you could say a few words.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for your leadership. Texas is strong, and the people of Texas are incredibly strong. They've gone through something that is absolutely horrific, and it is heartbreaking to watch these families suffer the way that they are. As soon as this flash flooding event happened, the governor has activated his emergency responders. Nim Kidd is his emergency management director, who is incredible, and has immediately worked with the local first responders to get help to individuals and get them evacuated, put requests in to me. We deployed, sir, right away, as you know, because you and I were talking a lot during this time, the Coast Guard. We also had some assets out of Customs and Border Protection. Our BORTAC teams went in and helped with rescues and clearing debris so that we could get roads open and people get the help that they need. I think when I got there the most, sir, that day, as soon as I arrived on site, was getting a briefing from all the emergency responders, was just how unified they were in focusing on the fact that we're there to save lives. They were there to rescue people, find people who were still alive, and to reunify them with their family members. We as a federal government don't manage these disasters. The state does. We come in and support them, and that's exactly what we did here in this situation. FEMA went to an enhanced level immediately, but as soon as you signed the major disaster declaration, we were able to get them resources and dollars right away, just like you envisioned through state block grants, to help them with cleanup. And we're still there in presence, and FEMA's been deployed, and we're cutting through the paperwork of the old FEMA, streamlining it much like your vision of how FEMA should operate, and it's been a much better response to help these families get through this terrible situation. We still are looking for people. We're still looking for a lot of little girls and other family members that were camping along that river, and they will continue until they find every single person, and we will continue to help them and assist in that. I was surprised when I got there at the camp that day, right after this happened, the parents that were there, the parents that were looking for their children and picking up their daughter's stuffed animals out of the mud and finding their daughter's shoe that might be laying in the cabin, and just hugging and comforting people matters a lot. I'm extremely grateful for God's hand in that whole situation, because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were saved. And this is a time for all of us in this country to remember that we were created to serve each other. God created us to take care of each other. And that when we do that, we are happier, we are more fulfilled, and we can walk alongside people on their worst day and help them get through it and come out the other side, knowing that we can continue to live a life that God has purposed for us. So they're grateful for you. Several times the day after the flooding, you and Melania were on the phone with me, and I want to thank you for that. That meant the world. I was able to tell many of those folks that I had been visiting with you, and that you had said, whatever they need, Christy, let's deploy it and get it down there and be helpful. And on Sunday, when the families were waiting at a church to identify their children's bodies, Franklin Graham and I called in and prayed with the families and read some scripture with them, and he was incredible in making himself available to that as well. We'll be back down there in a couple of days and continue to do all we can, but this is an unprecedented event. It really is. There's been tragedies like this around the country, but everyone is unique in different situations, and the response the federal government had supporting the state through this, I'm proud of the people that stepped up and immediately came. The Coast Guard, when they came in, they had a difficult time even getting the aircraft in and landed. They had to try several times in the weather to get it in and deploy, and I think we've heard about our one Coast Guard member that was responsible for saving over 165 people, but that entire crew did incredible work. And all the first responders there did incredible work. And I know people are getting tired now, but they're getting reinforcements, and volunteers are showing up. And I just want to commend the governor and his team for being the leaders. And they're so thankful that you're letting them make the decisions and manage the response like it should be. And then us supporting them with the resources of the federal government. We've already deployed dollars to the state, much like the block grants that you've talked about. Right. So they're grateful for that, sir.
There's never been a wave like this outside of the breaking of a dam. Because this was almost a wave that ended up being 30 feet high, more actually. Now with the dam you can understand it, but this approached almost with that speed. When you see a dam break, it's not a pretty sight. It wipes out everything, and this is the kind of thing that built up so fast. And it's happened 2 or 3 times before over the years, but not to this extent. But tell them when you met the father who was picking up the daughter's clothing. And
I had walked through the cabin where all the little girls died, and I had kind of fallen apart in there, but I walked out of the cabin, and a gentleman was standing there, and he said, that man over there needs a hug. And so I walked over to him, and I hugged him, and I said, do you work here? And he said, no, my little girl was in that cabin. And he said, and I just found her best friend about an hour and a half ago. She had passed away. And he just fell apart. And so then we just hugged and talked for probably an hour about that. But then there was another, the grandpa was there looking for his granddaughter as well. There was a dad there of one of the counselors. The counselor was alive, but she was dealing with the fact that she had hung on to some of these girls and was trying to keep them out of the floodwaters and had gotten hit by something and had lost 2 of the girls and wasn't able to hang on to them and was going to live the rest of her life thinking about that moment when she wasn't able to hang on to these girls. But these parents were picking up their kids' belongings out of the mud and throughout the camp and putting them in bags. And then one of the dads said, I knew 50 of these girls here. So I knew that was her dress and my daughter's friend's dress. So he was picking it up and putting it in a bag to return to her parents. And so it was and then the director was there comforting everybody who had lost his father the night before too, and he was still there trying to facilitate all of these parents grieving their children and find them. So the strength of people is incredible. One of the things that I asked there today, that day, was that they all have escorts or counselors when parents come in. So from that point, that when they came into the camp, that they have somebody with them when they're going and looking for their children's belongings or looking for their children. And so very emotional, but also just so tragic.
The relationship with Texas and the governor has been obviously very good for years with me, but the relationship with Texas and their first responders and us with our first responders and lots of other people, and we brought in a lot of helicopters from all over, and we had a lot of helicopters. It was actually dangerous, a lot of helicopters up there, but they were real pros, and they were responsible for pulling out a lot of people, and we got them there fast, and Texas had some good ones too, but the response has been incredible, and the fact that we got along so well, I don't know, I don't even think that's a political thing, but we got along so well, and it was so unified. I think a lot of lives have been saved. That could have been as bad as it was. You could have lost double or triple. This thing was just really horrible. Well, congratulations on a great job, and I appreciate it. I know you're going down. I'll be going down on Friday with First Lady, who would be taking a trip, and we don't want to get in anyone's way because that's what happens. The president goes and everyone's around focused on. I don't want anyone to focus on us, but it's possible they could have somebody saved still. There's a lot of areas. It's a big area, and probably unlikely at this point, but there could be. They're thinking there could be the possibility, but what a tragic situation. Good job, and we'll see you on Friday, and we'll finish out the day here. I think you've been reading a lot about it's a terrible topic when you talk about financial after this, but we have a big country, and we've been doing very well. The tariffs, as you know, are starting to come in at record levels. Tremendous amounts of money are coming in to our country. We never did that before. We're not used to it. We only have tariffs going out. We only adhere to the rules of other nations who charge us tremendous tariffs because we were led by stupid people or people without any business sense. And I'd like to ask Scott, you could maybe talk a little bit about how well we're doing with regard to the money coming in. And the big money will start coming in on August 1st. I think it was made clear today by the letters that were sent out yesterday and today. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. We will have taken in about $100 billion in tariff income thus far this year, and that's with the tariff, the major tariff not having started till the second quarter. So we could expect that could be well over $300 billion by the end of the year. We don't agree with CBO scoring, but for those who do, the CBO scored tariff income over the next 10 years at $2.8 trillion, which we think is probably low. And sir, under your leadership, we're witnessing.
They gave us no credit during this last little, the great, big, beautiful bill. I always use the word great. I add that to it because it really is what it is. There's never been anything like it, actually. And I want to thank all the Republicans that voted for it, and I want to, scold the Democrats because they're voting for tax cuts. They're voting for no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and many other things far more important than that. Great health care, and frankly, every Democrat should lose their election because it was purely political vote. They were told not to vote for it. So think of it: we got 218 to 2. And then with the Senate, we had 50 to 3. Democrats didn't vote at all, not one positive vote, with all of the good things in there. Economic development money, tremendous border money. Now you're loaded up on the border. And I don't think we're going to need so much of it because we had zero come in last month, so I'm not sure how much of it we want to spend. You may think about that. You may actually think about saving a lot of money because the wall's been largely built. And it obviously worked, but you may want to think about that. But so I think it's incredible when I watch the Democrats, and they have standard lines like they had Russia, Russia, Russia. They had the laptop from hell. It all came from Russia. They make things up and they go with it, and they feed it to you people in many cases. And they said, "Here's a line," and I hear the new line is death. Oh, it's death. Everyone's going to die. Has nothing to do with that. In fact, we're saving our country. Death is from allowing 25 million people into our country, of which 3 or 4 are stone-cold, hard criminals. 11,888 are murderers, many of them committing more than one murder. That's death, and the Democrats did that. Joe Biden did that by allowing people to come in here just totally unchecked, unvetted, open borders. The whole world was dumped into our country from prisons, from gangs, from mental institutions. We had many people walking the streets, walking in areas that we don't know anything about that came out of insane asylums. They released the insane asylum population into our country, and it's amazing the job that you and Tom Homan are doing, by the way, on that. But we have to get them out, and we have no choice. We have to get them out, and we are getting them out. And so, Pete, do you want to tell them about our great military and how well we did with respect to the bombers and the B-2? We had the pilots here 2 days ago, and they were incredible people. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Truly a historic mission, and demonstrated the skill and courage of the United States military. From those B-2 pilots and families that we had a chance to meet, sir, to the fighter pilots, to the refuelers, to the maintainers, to the air defenders who defended the base. What was demonstrated on the world stage was American military might and capability. And it wasn't just Fordo and Esfahan and Natanz that took notice in Iran. It was the rest of the world. That we have a decisive commander-in-chief willing to use these capabilities, which are the best in the world. As the president pointed out, no one else could have done what America did there on that night, and everyone took notice of that. With the One Big Beautiful Bill, sir, we've got $150 billion additional to invest in Golden Dome and all the other weapons systems and stockpiles and shipbuilding priorities of yours. Another month, another historic recruiting bump. It's not just the Army and the Marine Corps anymore, it's the Navy, the Air Force, and the Space Force, all historically ahead of where they've ever been. So historic spirit inside the military. We had a chance to be at NATO, Marco and I, and see how the world responds to us saying it's time for you to shoulder the burden and take the lead for your continent. That only happens with President Trump leading. And we're proud to be a part of what's going on at the border, sir, with now a 4th national defense area where we're helping get to that number 0 in securing the border. But that mission, Operation Midnight Hammer, re-established deterrence. It reversed what happened in Afghanistan. You saw the debacle of what Biden allowed to happen in Afghanistan and what that did to our image. President Trump said, with Operation Midnight Hammer, we're re-establishing American leadership and deterrence, and we're proud to be a part of it, sir.
And our so-called enemies were watching. They watched every minute of it. They watched. There was very few people that weren't watching, actually, but they watched every minute. It was a perfect military performance, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, if you compare that to the same country, the hostages from years ago, Jimmy Carter, it was unfortunate for Jimmy Carter. He was a nice man, but with the helicopters going down, the sandstorms, the prisoners, they got captured, then the election and the prisoners and Reagan and all the problems. it was nothing but problems. And that was a failure. And ours was not only the pilots. I mean, those machines flew for 37 straight hours. They didn't stop. They went skedaddle. You know the word skedaddle? It means skedaddle. They dropped the bombs, and somebody said, skedaddle. Let's get the hell out of here. And every bomb hit its mark, and hit it incredibly. And as you know, the Atomic Energy Commission said it's gone. That place is gone. We had a lot of fake reporting, mostly from CNN, where the scammer writer, a writer for CNN, who should be fired, by the way, she was involved with the 51 fake intelligence agents, if you remember that. She did that story, created a story out of it. She created a story out of the laptop from hell, saying it came from Russia, but it actually came from Hunter Biden's bedroom, or worse. Just a scammer, and she's still at CNN, which is pretty amazing. But we'll ask you a question about her. But they came up with this concept that maybe the attack wasn't that good. And I saw it happen right after the attack. I saw this person on CNN. I like to watch the enemy. You learn from the enemy. And I watch, because you have to know where they're coming from. And I watched her say, Anderson, I'm hearing stories that maybe they didn't hit their target, maybe it wasn't that good a hit. And they were hearing stories. The next day it was a little more, and the next day a little more. After 3-4 days, she was saying, I don't know, I don't think it was that. Except by that time everybody knew it was hit perfectly. The evidence is in the planes. The pilots are the best evidence. But they actually came out of their plane, because they were here the other day, and they said, it was so sad. We did such a good job. We flew into very dangerous airspace. I'll never forget, we were in the Situation Room, and they said they have entered Iranian airspace, and everyone took a deep breath, because they had more missiles pointed at them, but the equipment is so good, it's stealth, way up in the air, and it was stealth, and they went right through that, and they sort of, by the time they found out they were there, they were already gone. That was the word skedaddle, get the hell out of here. But they were right in the most dangerous airspace in the world, and they took those big, beautiful, very fast, they're unbelievable planes. I mean, they become really beautiful works of art. I always thought they sort of were cool, but now they look better than just cool, don't they? Huh? But they dropped the loads, and literally they would hit. If you look at this table from here to there, they had a half a refrigerator door is the way to best explain it. Take a refrigerator door, average size, cut it in half. That was their target. They hit every single one. Then we had 30 missiles, Tomahawk, shot from submarines 300 miles away. Every one of them hit their target. It was a perfect mission. Then they came back, almost 37 hours. Every plane worked perfectly. The mechanics were here too. I said, you got to get the mechanics here. We didn't have any problems. If you remember, they had a lot of problems with the helicopters, but they did fly through a dust storm, which they shouldn't have done. Sometimes you say, let's go back and try it on a nicer day. Dust and sand don't work well with helicopters, if you know much about helicopters. But that was a horrible embarrassment to us. Then we had Afghanistan, which I think was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And we would have gotten out. I was the one that got them down. I would have kept Bagram, the big air base, which right now is controlled by China, among the most powerful runways in the world. Thick with concrete and steel. Anything could land, and right now, they were 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. I was keeping it. Outside of that, we were leaving, and I would have been out faster than them, but we would have gotten out with strength and dignity. Instead, that was the most botched up mess I've ever seen. They left all that equipment behind, and every year they have a parade running down some third-rate street with the equipment. It's supposed to be Fifth Avenue. It doesn't work. But with all that equipment that they left, they should have taken every ounce of it. I was taking every ounce. I said every screw, every bolt, every nail you take out of there. And Millie said, I remember one time, sir, we're better off leaving the equipment. Why? Well, it's cheaper. I said, cheaper? You mean it's cheaper to leave a $150 million airplane rather than flying it into Pakistan or India or someplace, or just flying it straight home? It's cheaper. Yes, sir. That's when I knew he was an idiot. Didn't take long to figure that one out. But They left all that equipment, but they left their dignity behind. It was the most embarrassing moment, in my opinion, in the history of our country. Not that we got out, we should have not been there, but that we got out the way we got out, with great embarrassment and death. You had 13 young people. I've gotten to know their families very well, but you had hundreds of people killed that nobody talks about. You had the other side, many people were killed. Many people are walking around with no legs, no arms from that whole thing. They left from the wrong airport. They should have left from Bagram, because Bagram was a big base with hundreds of miles of fencing and territory around it. Nobody would be able to get near it, and they left. So we've done a great job, and I think people are really starting to see it. They're starting to appreciate it. Pete's done fantastically. That mission was a work of art, and I have spoken to some of our perceived, I don't know, enemies, but they're perceived as being potential enemies, and they essentially said the same thing. Very impressive. There wasn't a thing that we didn't lose an engine. We didn't lose it. Just they landed and they were cheered. But the sad thing was they were cheered, and one of the pilots said, we were a little concerned because when we got out, we were told that on television they were reporting that we may have missed our targets. Sir, we hit every target. That's what I do for a living. We hit every target. In fact, when the bombs hit, a yellow haze came over the horizon that I've never seen before. It just lit up the whole horizon, brighter than the sun. It was like looking into the sun. He goes, we hit our target, because you know what that was exploding. And but they were a little downbeat because they listened to that fake CNN reporting and the fake New York Times. They worked together to try and say that it wasn't perfect. They couldn't say what they missed. All they could say is, maybe it wasn't perfect. And you ought to fire that reporter immediately. You should fire her. Real fake. And so I just want to congratulate those pilots. And a lot of people don't like bringing things like that up. I do. I always like confronting, because otherwise the public doesn't know that you're a bunch of crooked people. But they know, they've learned, and the media has to straighten out their act. The media is down to 17% approval. You got to do a little better than that. It's important for the country that you do better. I think they ought to make a lot of changes. I think changes are going to be made to the media, but it's hard to have a really successful country if you have a corrupt media, and we really have a corrupt media. And nobody really knows why. I mean, why would you want to have open borders and criminals pouring into our country? Why would you want to have men playing in women's sports, transgender for everyone? You'll have to figure that out. But some of you don't. I mean, I'm looking at some people, they love the country, but I look at other people and they can't. But we're really proud of our military. It was, and the people that maybe don't like us or want to play games with us, because I think that had you not had the situation in Afghanistan, I don't think Putin would have gone in. I think when Putin looked at how stupid and incompetent that operation was, he said, wow, this might be a chance. And we're dealing with him now too. We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week. And I'm not happy with Putin. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Yes, sir. You just said that you're not happy with Vladimir Putin. Is there anything that you plan to do to act on that feeling of unhappiness?
Well, I wouldn't be telling you. Don't we want to have a little surprise? One of the things we did with the attack is that, and you asked that question, I didn't mean to be rude, but I'm rude because I'm looking at some of these crooked people. So I'm rude, but your question was asked very nicely. But one of the things we did is we went over every fact. We wanted to get every fact straight. We wanted to have the distance straight, the number of pilots straight. Everything had to be correct, because this was a very important mission. If we failed on this mission, it was beyond the war that, obviously we had with Iran and Israel, and a lot of hatred, a lot of years and years of hatred, centuries of hatred. People have never seen anything like it. So we wanted to be correct with all our facts. So what I was doing is just asking, it would be great if if the media would be correct with their facts. That's all we ask for. So, hey, go ahead. So finish it up.
Oh, yes, just sort of turning back to Russia, if there's anything that you would signal about your displeasure with them.
Well, look, I'm very unhappy with them. There's no reason for this. It's turned out to be tougher, but it's only tougher. And I will say the Ukrainians were brave, but we gave them the best equipment ever made. We gave them the anti-tank busters that knocked out tanks. I mean, you just aim them in the direction of the tank and the tank is gone. We gave them missiles, the latest and the greatest. They were able to shoot down a lot of things that would have normally wiped out. You know, probably would have been a very quick war. It would have been a war that lasted 3-4 days, but they had the benefit of unbelievable equipment. And Europe gave them to. We gave them far more because Biden shouldn't have done that. He should have equalized. We should have given him the same, or we should have given actually less than Europe. It affects Europe much more than us, but we're in there for over $300 billion. Europe's in there for over $100 billion, but still, Europe gave a lot. And I will say this, the Ukrainians, whether you think it's unfair that we gave all that money or not, they were very brave because somebody had to operate that stuff. And a lot of people I know wouldn't be operating it, and they wouldn't have the courage to do it. So they fought very bravely, but we gave them the best equipment in the world. We make the best military equipment by far. There's nobody close. You look at other equipment from other countries, it's not even close. That's why everybody wants to buy our equipment, and that's why we're going to step up these contractors now that make it, and they're brilliant, but they make it too slowly. And we have to step them up, Pete, and let them make it at a much higher rate. Unfortunately, we have to do that. But if you look at our Patriots, if you look at our Tomahawks, if you look at our, well, what we do with tanks is, you wouldn't want to be driving a tank. You would feel nice and secure, but they are javelins, they're called. And I gave them the javelins. Remember they said Trump gave the javelins and Obama gave them sheets, right? They called Obama at that time. Barack Hussein Obama, if you haven't heard, did a terrible job. But that was a war that should have never happened, and a lot of people are dying, and it should end. And I don't know, we get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Do you want to sanction him? Lindsey Graham has a sanctions bill on Russia. Do you want him to move ahead with that?
I'm looking at it, yeah. No, I'm looking. The Senate is passing and passed a very, very tough sanctions bill. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
And you'd sign that?
It's an optional bill. It's totally at my option. They pass it totally at my option, and to terminate totally at my option. And I'm looking at it very strongly.
Yesterday you said you want to see more weapons.
The Council of Economic Advisors released a new report saying that imported goods have actually decreased in price from December.
I know, it's not
through March. Well, my question is, the Fed chairman keeps saying that tariffs are going to cause price increases. Are the prices just not
Chairman of the Fed?
Yes, exactly.
Well,
Are the prices,
you do a better job than him.
Are the prices just not passed through yet?
No, I think what's happening is everything's evening out. You know, when we charge, see what people don't understand, the other countries have been charged, almost every country charges us tariffs. We had deficits with everybody for years, for decades. And we were like this big monolith that made bad deals with everybody. We rebuilt South Korea and we stayed there. It's okay, we rebuilt it and we stayed there. And they pay us very little for the military. I got them to pay billions of dollars, and Biden then canceled it when he came in. You know, I said to South Korea, as an example, you know, we give you free military, essentially, very little. And I think you should pay us $10 billion a year. And they went crazy. But they agreed to 3. So I got 3 with a phone call. And I was satisfied. I said, but next year we have to talk. And then we had a rigged election, and we never got to talk. And you know what Biden did? They probably went to him and they said, listen, Trump treated us terribly, and we shouldn't be paying anything, and he cut it down to nothing. So that's what happens. It's ridiculous. That's the other thing. We're talking to countries about contributing to the military, not only just paying more in NATO, but contributing. You know, we have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in Germany, 52,000 actually. And you know, that's a huge economic development for them. That's tremendous amount. That's like having a city. That's tremendous money for them, and it's a tremendous loss for us. So we're talking, in a very nice way, we're talking to them about it. It's very unfair. We supply the militaries to many very successful countries. I mean, South Korea is making a lot of money, and they're very good. They're very good, but, you know, they should be paying for their own military.
President Trump, could I ask you Jerome Powell as well, and then a question to the Attorney
question
General.
about what?
Jerome Powell, and then I have a question for the Attorney General. Jerome Powell, who you've been pressuring to lower interest rates, he's facing accusations of lying to Congress, which is a potential crime about the
Well, then he
opulent.
should resign immediately. We should get somebody in there that's going to lower interest rates.
Do you want congressional
Why don't you
Republicans
call
to
for his resignation?
do you want congressional Republicans to investigate and
It's
pursue?
okay
and
with
punish?
me. I think he's terrible. I think, look, we're paying, I call him too late. T-O-O, too late, like Too Tall Jones for the Dallas Cowboys, right? Too late. He's always late. But he wasn't late with Biden before the election. He was cutting him like crazy. It didn't help too much, did it? But he was cutting him like crazy before the election with Kamala and Biden. He was trying to get them in, I guess. I don't know. He was recommended by somebody that worked for me. I like you better.
If I could ask the Attorney General a question too, President.
Sure.
Your memo and release yesterday with Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape related to that?
Yeah, sure. If I
Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about